Chapter 26. Tsukimi, who had been paying attention to the panel, found that Madara's progress dropped directly from 74% to 50%, and guessed that Izuna was probably killed in the battle. After estimating the time, Yujian remembered this time point. Tomorrow they have to rely on Izuna's resurrection to stop Madara from going crazy on the battlefield. Yujian felt overwhelmed at the thought of this. He didn't expect that Tobirama would kill Izuna in the end. This is different from the original work. In the original work, Izuna could have been cured, but he was so determined to die that he gave up treatment in order to open the eternal Mangekaya for his brother. But this time Madara's progress started to slow down so quickly. I guess Tobirama killed Izuna himself. What went wrong? Just when Yuejian was puzzled, there was a whoosh and a white light appeared behind Yuejian. Yuejian turned around and saw that the person who came was Tobirama. It's Tobirama. It seems you have almost mastered the Flying Thunder God technique. Yuejian said. Master, how do you know about my ninjutsu? No, I came to see you because of Izuna. Oh? Tell me in detail. Tsukimi also became curious at this time. If it was really Tobirama who killed Izuna, he would never come to Tsukimi specifically for this matter. It seems that Izuna's death this time was not simple. So Tobirama described the battle between himself and Izuna to Tsukimi in detail, especially when he talked about the black figure underground. Tsukimi knew that Izuna's death was definitely related to Black Zetsu. At this moment, Guang had just fetched water. After hearing about Izuna's death, he lost his grip on the bucket and it fell to the ground. Tobirama looked over and found that Guang had tears in her eyes and was looking at him with disappointment. Guang didn't say a word and walked away again with the bucket. But Tobirama felt very uncomfortable. If you insist, Tobirama was absolutely not wrong, but that was because of their different standpoints and perspectives. If he only regarded them as his younger brothers, he naturally hoped that Tobirama could get along well with Izuna. Tsukimi comforted Tobirama, you don't have to blame yourself too much. After all, you didn't really want to kill Izuna. Master, do you believe me? Tobirama felt it was a little unbelievable. After all, he himself felt that what he said was ridiculous. Tobirama and Izuna could both be considered cage-level masters, but there was actually someone who could dodge their perception under their feet. No one would believe this. This is also the reason why Tobirama did not explain to Madara on the spot, and did not even tell Hashirama. He knew that no one would believe it, and Tsukimi was his only lifeline at this time. If Tsukimi doesn't want to believe it, Tobirama plans to take Izuna's death on himself first and then investigate slowly. At this time, Yuejian called Guang as well. Yuejian would never let such a low-level misunderstanding happen to her. It was something that could be solved by talking it out properly, but she insisted on letting the misunderstanding continue, which eventually led to bitter consequences. Tsukimi then told the two of them the story of Black Zetsu, and Nine Tails kept interrupting them to talk about how insidious and cunning Black Zetsu was. After knowing the existence of Black Zetsu, Tobirama realized that he was being used as a pawn. After knowing that Black Zetsu wanted to corrupt Madara, although Guang still kept smiling, the murderous intent had already emerged, and the hand that pinched Nine Tails' little face unconsciously used great force. Tobirama heard Tsukimi say that Black Zetsu's whereabouts were very unpredictable, and catching Black Zetsu was like catching a mouse, and he would disappear in the blink of an eye. So he told Yuejian that he had left the Flying Thunder God mark on Black Zetsu. Although he was too far away to teleport there directly, he could sense the approximate location of the mark. This made Yuejian very happy, and she felt more confident in killing Black Zetsu. Another thing that made Tsukimi happy was that Tobirama's reward progress had just exceeded 50%. It might be because he felt guilty about Izuna's death, or it might be because he had a common enemy like Black Zetsu, so his hatred for the Uchiha clan was reduced a lot. This was also an unexpected result. Looking at the sad Hikari and the guilty Tobirama, Tsukimi did not say that she could resurrect Izuna, and just treat it as a surprise for them tomorrow. You don't have to be too sad. Birth, aging, illness and death are common to all people. You might as well learn something from death. Yuejian continued, Tobirama, if the Uchiha family and the Senju family had no hatred, what would happen between you and Izuna? Tobirama thought for a moment and said, I'm not sure. Recalling the time when he and Izuna were training with their master, they actually got along surprisingly well. Tobirama continued, maybe we can be friends. Speaking of this, Tobirama couldn't help feeling a little distressed, and began to reflect on whether war should exist. Let the past be the past. The hatred between you and Izuna has disappeared. Now just look forward. After saying that, Tsukimi sent the two away. At this time, Tsukimi had to quickly familiarize herself with Tobirama's rewards, which were all A-level ninjutsu. After mastering it, Tsukimi's combat ability and combat style will definitely be greatly improved. The most important thing is that although the multiple shadow clone technique is a forbidden technique, it is also an A-level ninjutsu. By the way, the multiple shadow clone technique is one of the few forbidden techniques among A-level ninjutsu. With the multiple shadow clone techniques, Yujian's strength will immediately experience explosive growth. As he spoke, Yujian formed a seal and whispered, multiple shadow clone technique. There were bang, bang, bang sounds, and after the smoke dissipated, many clones appeared. Emma, a euro the main body finally learned this trick. It's been more than 1,000 years. Even a pig could have figured it out. It even needs a system reward. That's right. Today, brothers can meet and everything should be clear. Master, serve the wine. It's great to have a group to clear the black zone. We are short of one person. Please give us a nurse. We don't need a summoner. Summoner, get out of here. What? You can't grab monsters from us summoners, so you're just doing this. You're playing dirty, right? I'm a doctor, and I've diagnosed that Chun-Chun is ill. Great, it's the doctor, we are saved. Yujian looked at the shadow clone in front of her and couldn't say a word for a long time. She didn't expect her shadow clone to be so troublesome. However, Yujian didn't hate it. After 1,000 years, Yujian was still very happy to hear her hometown dialect again, even if these words came out of her own clone's mouth. However, the place was in a mess, and some of the clone's words were difficult to explain to Guang and the others, so Yearn simply released the shadow clone, and the surroundings suddenly became quiet. Oh my god, it seems that I can't summon too many shadow clone at a time, otherwise I will be annoyed to death. Yearn complained to herself, but her happiness was beyond words. Yearn continued, finally, I am not so lonely anymore. At the same time, Madara had transplanted his brother's Mangekyo Sharingan into his own eye sockets. At this moment, Madara remembered Izuna's voice and smile when he was alive, and Madara's face was full of pain and anger. He clenched his fists, his nails dug deep into his palms, and blood flowed through his fingers without him noticing. Izuna, I will definitely avenge you. Madara roared in a low voice. Every time he recalled the trusting and reluctant look that Izuna gave him before his death, Madara's heart felt like it was being pierced by countless needles at the same time. Madara didn't notice a dark figure muttering in the shadows, yes, that's it, fall into darkness, Uchiha Madara. Chapter 27. Izuna has been buried. Madara did not attend Izuna's funeral in person because he had to adjust to his new eyes. Of course this is just an excuse, the most important thing is that Madara cannot face the reality of Izuna's death. By the evening, his eyes had almost fused, so Madara took off his blindfold and slowly walked towards Izuna's grave. On the way, Madara recalled his experiences with Izuna, as if Izuna was still by his side, just like the little child who kept calling him brother, still living in this world. Soon after, Izuna's tombstone appeared vaguely. This small tombstone actually had Izuna's entire 20 years of life engraved on it. Madara approached and looked at the words on it. In the middle was engraved Uchiha Izuna's tomb, and on both sides were Izuna's life. Madara gently stroked the tombstone. Madara knew everything about the tombstone, and was basically even involved in it, but from the moment the tombstone was carved, Izuna's life was frozen. Izuna, I am not a good brother. I failed to let you live in a time without war, failed to let you live every day happily, failed to see you marry and have children. There are so many things that I failed to do for you. Don't worry Izuna, I've been wrong all along. My Sharingan can see through all flaws, but it can't see the darkness in people's hearts. I once naively thought that Hashirama and I alone could achieve the peace we dreamed of. I thought that the relationship between you and Tobirama had improved and you could put aside your past grudges, but I didn't expect Tobirama to kill you anyway. I actually hoped that you two could become good friends in the end, but the ending is so ironic. It seems that I was too stupid, and the price was your life. Izuna, don't worry, I have given up all my fantasies. Tomorrow I will let Tobirama be buried with you. Wait for me, Izuna. After saying that, Madara turned around and left, as if she had made some kind of decision. Just after Madara left, Black Zetsu emerged from the graveyard, sat on Izuna's grave, and said with an evil smile, brotherly love is really stupid, but Izuna, I still want to thank you for helping me push Madara into the abyss, he. After returning to the clan, Madara recalled what Izuna said before he died, and said slowly, is it a trick? Ha, I am so stupid. I actually played house with Hashirama for so long. The game should be over. After saying this, Madara went to bed, ready to face tomorrow's decisive battle in the best mental state. In the end, Madara did not listen to Izuna and go look for Tsukimi. The next morning, Madara went to the shrine and took out the Uchiha fan and sickle that were enshrined in the Uchiha era. After carrying them on his back, Madara led the Uchiha clan to the battlefield. After arriving at the battlefield, Madara saw Senjo Hashirama and Senjo Tobirama next to Hashirama. When Hashirama saw Madara staring at Tobirama, he subconsciously stood in front of Tobirama. Seeing Madara's Mangekyo Sharingan, Hashirama said, Madara, your eyes. When Tobirama found that Izuna did not come to the battlefield, he was sure that Izuna was indeed dead. At this time, Tobirama suddenly began to think about whether there was a kind of ninjutsu that could resurrect the dead. Thinking that people's souls would go to the impure world after death, the name of this ninjutsu was called impure world reincarnation. Unexpectedly, in his previous life, Tobirama invented the impure world reincarnation in order to cooperate with tandem paper bombs to break Susanoo, but this time he wanted to use the impure world reincarnation to resurrect Izuna. My brother left his power to me after his death. He helped me open the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan so that I can use it to protect my family. Madara began. I have already sent the documents of the truce agreement. If you really want to protect the Uchiha clan, you should end this fighting. Hashirama said firmly. Ha, Hashirama, you really are talking without any pain in your waist. You, Tobirama, you two can still stand here, alive and kicking. But Izuna, I can't hear his voice anymore, and I will never hear it again. Madara glared at Hashirama and Tobirama, the hatred in her eyes seemed to materialize. As soon as Madara finished speaking, a huge amount of chakra burst out and Susanoo appeared instantly. The huge blue-purple skeleton exuded a terrifying aura. Hashirama formed seals with his hands, wood-style. Deep forest bloom. Several huge vines broke out of the ground and bound up Susanoo. Several reddish-brown flowers gradually bloomed on the thick vines, and pollen continued to flow out of them, absorbing Madara's chakra. Looking at Susanoo kneeling on the ground and Madara with beads of sweat on his face, Hashirama couldn't help but say, Madara, stop it. This kind of fighting is meaningless. No meaning? You killed Izuna. Hashirama, this battle must have meaning. The meaning is that I want you to be buried with Izuna and the clan members who died before. Madara said this and activated the fourth stage of Susanoo, and Karasu Tengu's armor was put on Susanoo. Seeing this, Hashirama's expression became serious. He knew that Madara was determined and would not give up easily. So he stopped trying to persuade her, and quickly formed seals with his hands, wood-style. Wooden golem technique. A huge wooden golem appeared at the spot, with a lifelike dragon coiled on its arm. Tobirama was looking for an opportunity on the side. He knew very well how powerful Madara was now, and he had to find his weakness in order to win. But as soon as Tobirama looked at the two huge monsters in front of him, he was stunned. He found that all his ninjutsu were useless at this time, and he was not even qualified to participate in the fight between the two people. Madara controlled Susanoo and swung the weapon in his hand towards the wooden golem. The two collided with each other, making a deafening sound. The battlefield was suddenly filled with flying sand and rocks, and the surrounding ninjas retreated to avoid the chaos. During the fierce confrontation, Madara suddenly noticed a flaw in Hashirama's wooden golem. He sneered and used Susanoo to attack the weak spot with all his strength. However, at this moment, Hashirama secretly performed the wooden dragon technique, and the wooden dragon coiled on the wooden golem's arm instantly split into several small dragons, rushing towards Susanoo from all directions. Madara was a little overwhelmed at first, but she quickly adjusted herself. A determination flashed in his eyes, and he injected more of his own chakra into Susanoo. Susanoo burst out with even more powerful force, breaking through the encirclement of wooden dragon in one fell swoop. Sweat broke out on Hashirama's forehead as he tried hard to control the wooden golem and deal with Susanoo. However, Madara, full of rage, ignored his own consumption and continued to strengthen the power of Susanoo. The purple light was brighter and brighter. When it was about to crush the wooden golem, Hashirama said, "Madara, we are friends. Are you going to abandon our dreams?" Madara said coldly, "How long will you keep saying this? That naive Uchiha Madara died yesterday. It's impossible to be honest with each other." At this moment, Susanoo raised the samurai sword in his hand and pointed it at the wooden golem kneeling on the ground. Seeing Madara so determined, Hashirama controlled the wooden golem to stand up and fight with Susanoo. The huge wave caused the ground to crack inch by inch. At this time, the battlefield completely belonged to Madara and Hashirama. All the ninjas on the battlefield only realized today that their clan leader was so strong. While the battle between Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama was in full swing, a sneaky figure walked into the Uchiha cemetery. Chapter 28. While Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama were fighting fiercely, a sneaky figure walked into the Uchiha cemetery. And this sneaky figure is, of course, Uegian's shadow clone. The clone Uegian is seen looking around like a thief with shifty eyes, as if someone will come out to beat him up in the next second. The clone Tsukimi looked at the tombstones in front of him and murmured, "It's just like robbing a grave. What a thrilling sense of immorality." Then, the clone Tsukimi began to look for Izuna's grave. After all, he was the son of the clan leader, and he would definitely not be buried in the periphery like ordinary clan members, so the clone Tsukimi's initial target was the central area of A the cemetery. Uchiha Hirofumi, Uchiha Junichiro, Uchiha Shinzo, Uchiha Tajima, Uchiha. As she recited, Tsukimi seemed to see a familiar name. It turned out to be Uchiha Tajima. The old guy is really dead. Sigh, I didn't expect that the last time we met would be the last time we met. It's fate and timing. The clone Tsukimi was muttering all the way along the way, the main theme was joy and unreliability. Although the clone was unreliable, at least Izuna's grave was found. He looked up at the sky and roughly estimated the time it would take for Izuna to be resurrected. It would take about 10 minutes. Just as his clone Uegian was waiting boredly, he suddenly had an idea. He wants to pay tribute to a certain legendary sea god. So Tsukimi performed the transformation technique and instantly turned into Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara was seen standing in front of Izuna's grave, with his hands raised high, his face solemn and dignified, shouting, "Resurrection! My brother!" The voice echoed throughout the Uchiha cemetery. Uchiha Madara, who was fighting at this moment, suddenly felt a strange feeling in his heart. He frowned and felt that something seemed to be wrong with the cemetery. Senju Hashirama also noticed Madara's distraction and took the opportunity to launch a fierce attack. But on Tsukimi's side, as his shouting ended, Izuna's grave began to glow and the soil slowly loosened. The surrounding space seemed to be distorted by a mysterious force. Finally, a hand stretched out from the soil, and then Izuna slowly climbed out of the grave. He looked at Tsukimi who had transformed into Madara with a blank face, and murmured, "Am I not dead?" Looking at Madara Izuna in front of him, he said, "Brother, what's going on?" Just when Madara wanted to reply, Izuna suddenly said, "No, you are not my brother, who are you?" The main reason was that Izuna knew Madara too well. His brother's expression would not be so rich, and the clone Tsukimi was too jumpy. In just a short while, his emotions changed several times, so Izuna could see it. Izuna then activated the Mangekyo Sharingan. Although Izuna's eyes were transplanted by Madara, the unreasonable thing called the resurrection coin restored Izuna to 1 hour before he was fatally injured, so the Mangekyo Sharingan was also restored. Seeing this scene, Uchiha thought of countless ways to use the resurrection coin, but there was only one resurrection coin, so it was just thought. At this time, Izuna had already opened his eyes and stared closely at the Madara in front of him. The simple transformation technique naturally could not be hidden from the Mangekyo Sharingan, so Izuna could tell at a glance that the person in front of him was not Madara, but his master. "Master, why is it you? Why are you here?" Izuna asked in confusion. "If I didn't come, you would have to continue lying on the ground," Uegian said. Izuna also reacted and said, "Master, did you revive me?" Uchiha did not hide it, nodded and said, "Remember the coin I gave you before? That coin is called the resurrection coin, which has the effect of bringing the dead back to life, but I only have that one." After hearing what Uegian said, Izuna was very moved that the master was willing to use such a precious thing to save his life. Just when Izuna was still wondering why Uegian gave him the coin in advance, and whether his master could foresee his death, Uegian said, "Stop talking nonsense. Your brother is now competing with Hashirama for both victory and death. If you go over now, you might be able to stop these two people. You should hurry up and go to the forest to find my real body. I will withdraw first." After saying that, the clone Uchiha made a seal and turned into smoke and disappeared with a bang. "It's actually Shadow Clone. Does Master's Shadow Clone also have so much chakra?" Izuna murmured. One of the functions of Sharingan is to see the amount of chakra a person has, but if the person can control the chakra and not leak it at all, it cannot be observed. When Tsukimi was with the others, she didn't try to control her chakra at all. So when Madara opened her eyes and accidentally saw Tsukimi's chakra level one day, she was so shocked that she couldn't say a word. Seeing that his master's shadow clone had disappeared, Izuna began to look around. Looking back, he found his own tombstone. The black and white stone carving on it was Izuna's face. Izuna looked at his smiling portrait in deafening silence. Then Izuna found out that he had died yesterday, so his brother should have just fought with Hashirama today. Thinking of the culprit behind his own death, Izuna seemed to guess that he and his brother were being used by someone. Fortunately, the master resurrected him, otherwise Izuna would really be worried about Madara. After organizing his thoughts, Izuna hurried to the river where he usually trained, and soon saw the light of people washing clothes by the river. Good morning, Sister Guang. Have you started washing clothes so early? Izuna greeted Guang with a smile. Guang rubbed his eyes and said, I must be sick. I am actually hallucinating. I haven't overdrawn my pupil power recently, so why am I blurry-eyed? Could it be that I have been hit by some genjutsu? What's going on? Sister Guang, it's really me. I'm resurrected. Izuna continued. Izuna, is it really you? Hikaru said in shock. It's really me, Sister Guang. If you don't believe me, come and see. After hearing what Izuna said, Guang did not move forward to look, but threw a great fireball technique at him. Guang said angrily, I don't care who you are, but as long as you play this kind of joke and take pleasure in teasing the dead, I will definitely kill you. Obviously, Hikari thought that Izuna was someone who used a more advanced transformation technique, because there was no resurrection of ninjutsu circulating at this time, so Hikari's idea was not unreasonable. Even in the afterlife, there is only reincarnation, rebirth after death, and rebirth through the impure world that cannot be completely resurrected. In the end, the farce between the two was ended by Tsukimi. After knowing that it was Tsukimi who resurrected Izuna, Guang was very grateful to Tsukimi and said thank you master for your hard work countless times. Then Tsukimi said that she was going to take Hikari to the battlefield. Upon learning that Madara and Hashirama were fighting each other, Hikari also asked Tsukimi to take her with him. Yearn naturally did not refuse, after all, one more person would not be a problem. The most excited one at the moment is Ninetales. Ninetales really wants to test the results of his training. In the past few years, Ninetales has not been completely idle and his strength has improved a lot, so he wants to go to the battlefield to try to compete with Madara and Hashirama. Then the three of them and the fox went to the battlefield together. When they arrived, Izuna looked at Susanoo and Wooden Golem in the distance with his jaw wide open, and murmured, Are my brother and Hashirama so powerful? It was the first time for Izuna to see the fourth stage of Susanoo. After all, the fourth stage of Susanoo required a huge amount of eye power and chakra. In the past, Tajima would be almost dead after driving the third stage, but Madara was driving the fourth stage like nothing happened and was racing vigorously. On the other side, Hashirama was equally amazing. His wooden golem technique showed its prowess the first time it appeared, and was on par with Susanoo. Watching the battle between the two, Guang's eyes were filled with the tall Susanoo. On the other hand, Ninetales nodded secretly, muttering in his heart that he could fight. After figuring it out, Ninetales jumped off Yujian's shoulder and said briskly, Wait a minute, I'll go stop these two guys. After saying that, Ninetales rushed to the battlefield. Chapter 29. As Ninetales headed for the battlefield, Izuna asked, Master, why don't you just stop the fight between my brother and Hashirama? Yujian said, Izuna, what do you think of your brother and Hashirama's current strength? Very impressive. I can't participate in such a battle at all. My Susanoo can only maintain the third stage now. I'm afraid I will lose quickly if I fight against one of the two. So how do you think you are compared to other clan ninjas? If they are ordinary ninjas from other families, I can kill them in an instant. If they are top family ninjas, I am sure I can kill them in 10 minutes. Tsukimi knew that Izuna was not joking. Although Izuna had just been successfully ambushed by Tobirama, that was when Tobirama developed the Flying Thunder God technique. This information gap caught Izuna off guard. Besides, how many people in the entire ninja world can develop ninjutsu of the same level as the Flying Thunder God jutsu? Weren't all the more powerful ninjutsu in Konoha Village invented by Tobirama? Except for the all-purpose raised Nan. Tsukimi continued, what would the other ninjas think if they saw the fight between your brother and Hashirama? I'm afraid they will be very shocked, and even afraid of the strength of the two people. At this time, Guang interrupted and said, I understand, Master. You deliberately did not stop the two people from fighting, just to let other ninjas see the strength of the two people, right? Yes, this war has lasted too long. It is time to end it, and Hashirama and Madara are the hope to end it. So this battle must not only be seen by the Uchiha clan and the Senjo clan, but also by the Sarutobi clan, the Shimura clan, the Yamanaka clan, and all the surrounding clans. When the strength of the two men was deeply imprinted in their minds, they discovered that the two behemoths had actually joined forces. At this time, there were only three choices before these families, one was to join them, the other was to compete with them, and the last one was to flee. These families are definitely reluctant to let them go. Except for some more courageous families, no one would be willing to give up their family business that has been around for hundreds of years. Competing with the Senjo and Uchiha clans is not an option for other clans. After all, after knowing the true strength of Madara and Hashirama, the other clans no longer have the desire to compete. After all, any one of Madara and Hashirama can wipe out these clans. So there are three choices, but in fact, there is only one path for the surrounding families, and that is to join the alliance between the Senjo clan and the Uchiha clan. And Izuna's resurrection is the most crucial step, and it is also an opportunity for the two families to come together smoothly. As long as Tobirama didn't kill Izuna, even Tobirama and Izuna, as well as Madara and Hashirama, are pawns of someone, Madara and Hashirama will naturally take this opportunity to join forces to expose the outside world after learning this. As long as the two families successfully form an alliance, peace will follow. After hearing what the master said, Guang and Izuna were a little shocked. They didn't expect that the master thought so far ahead. At this time Izuna said again, Master, why did you let Kurama-sensei stop them both? Tsukimi said, First of all, it will not be easy for your teacher Kurama to fight against these two people. It will take a short time to determine the winner. We know everything about Kurama, but other families do not know the information about Kurama. In the end, Madara and Hashirama are still human beings, but they are much stronger. But your teacher Kurama is a complete monster in their eyes. Then Hashirama and Madara who are fighting against the monster at this time will be considered heroes by them. This will be very beneficial for the major families to come together in the future. After listening to Yujian's analysis, both of them nodded. At this time, Ninetales had arrived at the battlefield. As soon as Ninetales stepped onto the battlefield, a powerful chakra aura instantly spread. Its huge body was as big as a hill, and its 9 tails were waving wildly, each swing bringing up a gust of wind. Hey, stop it, you two guys. There's no point in fighting like this. Ninetales' voice was like the dull thunder in the dark clouds. The ninjas in the distance couldn't hear it clearly, but the pressure brought by Ninetales made them tremble with fear. Teacher Kurama, how come even you think this battle is meaningless? Do you also think Izuna's death was in vain? Madara spoke angrily through the gem on Suzanu's forehead. Teacher Kurama, please get out of the way. I must subdue Madara today. Hashirama also became angry and spoke. Subdue me, Hashi-lama, you are so bold to say that. Seeing the two people quarreling again, Ninetales was speechless and decided to just take action. So Ninetales took the lead in launching the attack, and as soon as he opened his mouth, raging flames swept towards Madara and Hashirama. Now Ninetales used ninjutsu very skillfully. Madara's eyes flashed, and he quickly activated Susanoo to block it. The blue giant swung his weapon and slashed at the flames. Not to be outdone, Hashirama performed wood-style, tree world advent in an instant, and countless sturdy trees rose from the ground and rushed towards Ninetales. Ninetales dodged nimbly by leaping, and took the opportunity to sweep the two with his tail. For a moment, it was outnumbered two at once, but its attack was so swift that Madara and Hashirama could only passively defend. But after a moment, Madara and Hashirama looked at each other and reached a tacit understanding. They decided to defeat Ninetales first and then decide who was better. Madara used the Mangekyo Sharingan to release Genjutsu to interfere with Ninetales, and Hashirama took advantage of the situation to get close to him, and used wood style to tightly wrap around Ninetales' limbs. Ninetales felt his body being restrained and struggled, his chakra bursting out explosively, shaking off part of wood style. However, Madara's Genjutsu strikes again, and Ninetales' movements become slow. Hashirama took the opportunity to increase the power of wood style, and more branches and vines entangled Ninetales. Just as Ninetales was gradually getting into trouble, it suddenly howled to the sky, and a surge of power surged from its body. It turned out that Ninetales was not using his full strength at this time. Ninetales' eyes turned red, and the air around him seemed to be burning. It struggled hard and completely broke free from the wood style's restraints. Ninetales then yanked its tail and pulled Susanoo next to Hashirama's wooden dragon. At the same time, Ninetales continued to condense chakra on the spot and released an extremely powerful tailed beast ball. The huge amount of chakra almost drained Ninetales. Madara and Hashirama felt this destructive force and their faces changed. They had no time to dodge and could only work together to use their strongest defensive moves. At this time, Madara put Susanoo on Hashirama's wooden golem, and the two of them defended together to resist the power of the tailed beast ball. The tailed beast ball hit the defensive wall, causing a violent explosion, and smoke and dust filled the entire battlefield. When the smoke cleared, Madara and Hashirama looked a little embarrassed, and although Ninetales was still standing, it was also extremely exhausted. Just as both sides were about to attack again, Yujian created a clone, who grabbed Izuna's collar and said with a wicked smile, "It's time for a thrilling race." With a flash, Tsukimi's real body appeared on Ninetales' forehead, while her clone Tsukimi appeared on the head of the majestic Susanoo holding Izuna. At this time, the original body and the clone said at the same time, "That's it." But the two men and the fox with red eyes seemed to hear nothing. Ninetales wanted to continue to condense the tailed beast ball. Yumi stepped on Ninetales' mouth, forcing it to hold the tailed beast ball back. Hashirama and Madara also wanted to attack together. Seeing this, the clone Tsukimi also attached chakra to his hands, easily pierced Susanoo, and took out the two. At this time, Madara looked at the left hand of the person who took out his weapon and found that the person looked familiar. Izumi, 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 Izuna. Madara asked in surprise. Chapter 30. Izumi, 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 Izuna. Madara asked in surprise. Izuna scratched his head. After all, it was a bit awkward to be mentioned, even if this person was his master. When Madara left Susanoo, Susanoo naturally dissipated, but wood style. Wooden golem could continue to be controlled after leaving the body. So the scene at this time is Tsukimi standing on the forehead of the wooden golem, while Madara, Hashirama, and Izuna have their legs dangling in the air, hanging in Tsukimi's hands. Brother, good morning. Because it was too embarrassing and the situation was too strange, Izuna thought for a long time and blurted out these words. Izuna, you're not dead? Or did I get hit by a genjutsu? Madara said in disbelief. Master, can you put us down first? Izuna did not answer Madara's question, but spoke to Yuejian first. After all, this was not the right time for them to have a conversation. The clone Tsukimi nodded and placed several people on the head of the wooden golem. Only then did Madara and Hashirama realize that they were actually brought up by their master. Mainly because I was so shocked when I first saw Izuna that I didn't notice how I was pulled out. At this time, a white flash appeared behind Hashirama. It turned out that Tobirama saw that Ninetales and wooden golem had been stagnant on the battlefield for so long, and thought that something had happened to his brother, so he quickly used Flying Thunder God to teleport over. Seeing Tobirama, Madara protected Izuna behind him, fearing that his brother would fall into Tobirama's hands again. Tobirama was also shocked to see Izuna. He was sure that Izuna was dead at that time, so who was standing here now? Seeing that the atmosphere was about to become tense, the clone Tsukimi quickly informed everyone of everything. Before Izuna died, he saw the black hand and quickly accepted that his death was the result of someone's conspiracy. But Hashirama and Madara were really shocked. It turned out that Izuna's death and the battle between the two today were all instigated by Black Zetsu. Madara felt extremely angry at this time. Someone actually wanted to use his brother's life to make himself fall into darkness, and he succeeded. Thinking of this, Madara quickly bowed to Yearn and said, "Thank you, master. This is the second time you have pulled me back from the darkness. Especially this time you resurrected Izuna. I really don't know how to thank you." The clone Yearn remained unreliable as always and said, "You don't need to say too much to thank me. Just hurry up and end the war with Hashirama, then marry Guang and give birth to a few big fat boys for me to take care of. I will be satisfied then." Madara was embarrassed, and fortunately Guang was not there, otherwise Madara might have jumped directly from the wooden golem. Hashirama also laughed, mocking the shy Madara. "Watermelon rind, if you laugh again I will throw you down," Madara said with a red face. At this time, Tobirama and Izuna did not quarrel because of their fight. Although Tobirama was very fast at that time, Izuna still saw the actions of Tobirama and Black Zetsu, and naturally knew that Tobirama had no intention of killing him. It was because of Izuna's death that Tobirama realized that his hatred for the Uchiha clan was an engraved impression. This hatred was initially born because of his family, and as he continued to go deeper into the battlefield, he was also drawn into the hatred. After communicating with Yearn, Tobirama also came to his senses. He also discovered that the battle between the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan seemed to be of little significance. The resources here were enough for the two major clans to develop together, so why not end this battle and move towards a new beginning? At this time, Tsukimi's real body had also completed the communication with Nine Tails, and the other clone also told Hashirama and Madara that they had to act out the whole play, so the battle that had been stagnant for so long started again. The other ninjas did not notice anything wrong. After all, it was normal to be physically exhausted after fighting for so long, and they did not question this half-time break. Then, Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara fought side by side. They used Susanoo and wooden golem techniques again to fight against the ferocious Nine-Tails fox. Hashirama formed seals with his hands, and powerful chakra surged out instantly. Countless huge wooden dragons grew on the body of the wooden golem, coiling around the wooden golem like spirit snakes. Madara activated his blood-red Mangekyo Sharingan, and the powerful eye power made the Susanoo further condensed, and even the wooden dragon had a powerful Susanoo. With the tacit cooperation between the two, Nine-Tails gradually fell into a disadvantage. Although it kept roaring and struggling, it was ultimately unable to withstand the fierce attacks of Hashirama and Madara. Finally, with a loud bang, Nine-Tails was completely repelled, and its huge body flew away like a meteor. At this moment, Nine-Tails quickly shrank its body and left the battlefield. The performance ended perfectly. After this thrilling battle, the battlefield was in ruins and devastation. For the first time, the Uchiha and Senju clans knew that their clan leader's true strength was so terrifying. Especially the troublemakers in the Uchiha clan, they were now terrified, fearing that Madara would come back to take revenge on them. The impact of this battle was so great that almost all the families in the Land of Fire were aware of it. After the battle, the news spread like wildfire, and the names of Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara became famous throughout the Land of Fire. Especially in the second half of the battle, Madara and Hashirama teamed up to repel Nine Tails. As the news spread, Madara and Hashirama were portrayed as heroes who stood up to protect the ninjas from monsters. A few days passed like this, and just when this battle was being talked about by everyone, the news that the Senju and Uchiha clans decided to cease fire and establish a ninja village together reached everyone's ears like a spring breeze. The Senju clan, represented by Hashirama and Tobirama, signed the armistice agreement, and the Uchiha clan, represented by Madara and Izuna, signed the armistice agreement. It was the first time that the two major families put aside their past grudges and fought each other without meeting each other. Due to the strength of Madara and Hashirama, there was no opposition to the peace talks. On the one hand, they were tired of the war, and on the other hand, who would dare to sing a different tune at this time? After the two major families jointly established the ninja village, some large and small families joined the village. After consultation among the major families, the village was called Konoha, and the first leader was called Hokage, which hinted at Hashirama's wood style and Madara's fire style. As the village grew larger, the candidate for the first Hokage had to be decided immediately. Hashirama wanted to nominate Madara as the first Hokage, and this time Tobirama did not object. After peace came, Guang also fulfilled his promise and accepted the Uchiha family name again. Madara took the opportunity to confess his love to Guang under the encouragement of the three people. Guang also accepted Madara's confession, and the two got married not long ago. Not long after Madara and Hikari got married, Hashirama and Mito also formed a couple. After all, the Senju clan and the Uzumaki clan had been allies for generations and Hashirama and Mito had been friends since childhood and had a crush on each other. Madara, who successfully confessed her love, turned into a military strategist to give advice to Hashirama. Unexpectedly, they were brought together by accident, and Hashirama followed Madara and started a family with Mito. After getting married, Guang disliked Madara's spiky hair, so he dressed Madara up himself and tied up her messy hair. Unexpectedly, after this, Madara no longer looked like an Uchiha. The children in the village no longer got scared to death when they saw Madara like they did in their previous life. Instead, if they met them on the road, they would often pester Madara and Hashirama to play with them. Even the clan leader acted like this, and the Uchiha people put away their arrogant attitude and gradually became gentle. Moreover, the Uchiha clan is born with a natural appearance attribute, and their good looks naturally attract other people's favor, so the process of the Uchiha clan's integration into Konoha Village in this life was very smooth. Finally, after everything was ready, Uchiha Madara became the first Hokage, and Senju Hashirama became the first Hokage's assistant. That day marked the beginning of the first year of Konoha. Chapter 31. Hey, Tsunade, run slower, be careful not to fall. I saw a little girl with golden hair, about 3 or 4 years old, with her ponytail swinging up and down as she ran. Behind the girl, there was a man wearing black clothes and red armor, chasing and shouting, fearing that the girl would get hurt. Needless to say, the two people are naturally Tsunade and Hashirama, and behind Hashirama is Uchiha Madara. Madara is holding her granddaughter and laughing at Hashirama, laughing at him for not being able to take care of his own child. Madara's granddaughter is called Uchiha Yukino. She is timid every day, just like Hinata when she was a child. Tsukimi even doubts whether she is Uchiha. Because of the relationship between Madara and Hashirama, Yukino and Tsunade often play together and have a very good relationship. Yukino and Tsunade were born on the same day, and in a few days both of them will be celebrating their 4th birthday. Now Hashirama and Madara are taking their granddaughters to invite someone to attend. Tsunade rushed forward regardless of anything. Soon we saw the Hokage building from Tsunade's perspective. Could it be that Tsunade was going to the Hokage building to invite the Hokage to attend her birthday? Don't be ridiculous, that's definitely not the case. Didn't you see the first Hokage hanging around Tsunade? So who should Tsunade invite to her birthday party? Tsunade walked around the Hokage building. Behind the Hokage building was a small but very exquisite building with a sign hanging on it that read Konoha Nursing Home. It is now the 15th year of the Konoha calendar. Uchiha Madara is the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama is the Hokage's assistant, Tobirama and Izuna are advisory elders, and Konoha's Assassination Tactics Special Forces, abbreviated as ANBU, is the department proposed and formed by Tobirama, and the force is directly commanded by the Hokage. At this time, ANBU appeared much earlier than before. Because there was no war, other countries were still unaware of ANBU's existence and had not yet begun to imitate it. At the same time, there were many ANBU members on guard around the Konoha Nursing Home, not allowing outsiders to enter the Konoha Nursing Home. One of the ANBU members wearing a cat mask saw Tsunade and was about to intercept her. His teammate wearing a monkey mask immediately stopped him and said, "Are you new here?" "Yes, it was just reported yesterday." "Don't worry about Princess Tsunade and Princess Yukino when you see them from now on." "But didn't the Hokage say that except for the Hokage, the assistant and the elders, everyone else who came over should be stopped?" "Don't worry, that lady loves Princess Yukino and Princess Tsunade very much. If we bring the two of them together, the princess might even hold a grudge against us. It's better not to do such a thankless task. Thank you for your advice, brother. I'll treat you to a drink at the pub after get off work. You are quite a smart guy." Monkey Face said happily while patting Cat Face's shoulder. "Hehe, that's as I should, but senior, what is the identity of the person living in the nursing home?" asked Cat Face curiously. "I don't know. Don't ask about such things. We can't afford to offend the person inside. I only know that the person living inside is the master of Lord Madara and Lord Hashirama." Monkey-faced man said seriously. After hearing this, the cat-faced man's expression under the mask was very rich. The powerful Madara and Hashirama were both disciples of that person, so how powerful must he be? At this time, Tsukimi in the Konoha nursing home was sorting out the harvest of the past few years. Now Madara has completely won the hearts of the villagers. Just as the system prompt sound of Madara and Hashirama sounded, Tsukimi looked at the rewards for Madara and Hashirama, both of which had reached 100% completion. Madara's two-stage rewards were Mangekaya and Eternal Mangekaya, while Hashirama's were Sage Body and Perfect Sage Mode. The two rewards are nothing short of terrifying, especially the Perfect Sage Mode, which can be said to be a powerful weapon against the enemy. Both the damage increase and versatility are top-notch. Tsukimi Mangekaya's left eye is a technique called Oyamura, which allows him to travel through time and space, placing himself in the past, future, and parallel ninja worlds, but he cannot affect other time and space. The technique of Mangekaya in the right eye is called Shao Si Faguo, and its function is very simple, which is to enable the user to cross dimensions and affect other time and space. Therefore, Yuji-un can affect other timelines by combining his left and right eyes. Because these two ninjutsu consume a huge amount of pupil power, Tsukimi only tried it once and never used it again. The technique of the right eye is equivalent to a passive one, and the technique of the left eye has a cooling time of 1 month. There is no need to consider the time spent in other time and space. If she wants, Tsukimi can even stay in other time and space forever. Simply put, the Great Night Demon is like opening a door in someone else's house. Once the gate of opening is opened, the door will always exist until you return to your own time and space. In other people's homes, you do not have the authority to operate everything, but Shao Si Faguo gives you a permission so that you can interact with other time and space. It is not until now that Tsukimi possesses the Eternal Mangekaya that she can use her abilities without scruples. In fact, when Tsukimi possessed Mangekaya, she thought that with the immortal body and infinite cellular vitality, her pupil power should be recoverable. However, after trying it, Tsukimi found that the consumed eye power did not recover. It might be because she did not have the Uchiha bloodline, so Tsukimi never used these two ninjutsu. Until today, when she possessed the Eternal Mangekaya, this concern disappeared. All the rewards of light were received. After the chakra recovery speed of the second stage increased tenfold, Yumi no longer cared about anything when using chakra. The reward of the third stage was to increase the chakra recovery speed by 100 times. Since then, Yumi's chakra amount has never reached the bottom. Even if she used it all up, it would be restored in a short while. The reward for the fourth stage is very direct. It rewards yourself with the technique of 8,000 spears. 8,000 spears can be said to be a bug level skill, which is not inferior to Eternal Mangekaya and Perfect Sage Mode. As for Tobirama and Izuna, their progress is around 90%. They have obtained all the S-level ninjutsu as rewards for the third stage. Their fourth stage rewards are a tenfold increase in the power of their ninjutsu and a tenfold increase in the power of their genjutsu. If they get them, any ninjutsu of Tsukimi could be at the forbidden spell level in the other world. The final stage reward of 9 tails is a 50-fold increase in perception. With this, Yuejian combined with the truth-seeking ball can completely accomplish the feat of taking the enemy's head from 100 miles away. Now, Tsukimi's strength can be said to be invincible in the world. Even if Aoi Tsutsuki attacks, Tsukimi is confident that she can defeat him. To sum up, except for Tobirama and Izuna's 4-stage rewards, Tsukimi has already taken all the rewards that can be taken. Tsunade and Yukino are already 4 years old, and it's time to arrange a life and death fight between Hashirama and Madara. If the two don't die once, I'm afraid Naruto and Sasuke won't be born successfully. After the two girls' birthdays, let Madara and Hashirama go to the Valley of the End to fight. Anyway, neither of them is convinced by the other, so this is a good opportunity for them to decide who is better, so that they don't have to quarrel in the future. After all, I can already reincarnate myself, so I can just kill them and then revive them. After organizing her thoughts, Tsukimi heard a clear shout outside the door. Soon after, a little girl rushed into the nursing home, followed closely by Hashirama, and soon Madara also came in holding Yukino. Grandpa Tsukimi, good morning. What story are you going to tell me today? Tsunade hugged Tsukimi's arm and chattered. Grandpa Tsukimi, I want to hear a story too. When Yukino heard that a story was going to be told, she immediately broke free from Madara's arms and said to Tsukimi. Yujian looked at the two children and was in a very good mood, so she said, how about we talk about the daughter of the sea today? No, I've heard this before. Tsunade said. How about we talk about Snow White today? Great-grandfather, I've told you this before. Yukino shrank her head and said, as if she had done a lot of psychological work before saying this. Yujian scratched his head. He had basically told the two of them all the stories and didn't know what else to say. Suddenly, Yujian had an idea and spoke mysteriously. Today we are going to tell the story of Qin Emperor Ying. Zhang. Chapter 32. After telling the story, Yujian let the two girls go and play. After all, there was nothing dangerous in the nursing home, and it would be difficult for the two to get hurt. Besides, Yujian was here, so even if the two accidentally killed themselves, Yujian could resurrect them. Jisei reincarnation uses the caster's chakra as a medium to distribute vitality to other people. If it is used on a living person, the caster can share the vitality with the recipient. If it is used on a dead person, the caster's chakra will transform the soul of the dead. Both conditions are not difficult for Yujian, so resurrecting others is really stress-free. After the two children left, Madara and Hashirama started talking to Tsukimi. Madara asked curiously, Master, why do you have a plaque of Konoha nursing home hanging on your door? Tsukimi glanced at him and replied, this is for you and Hashirama. Hashirama said, prepared for us? Master, we are both young and strong now, we don't need old age care at all. Yujian said, don't worry about it, Tsunade and Yukino's birthday party will be held in a few days. When it's over, you two can go to the Valley of the End to fight a battle to the death. It just so happens that neither of you is willing to give in, so take this opportunity to see who is better. After the competition, I will revive you all, and then you will live in Konoha nursing home. Don't go out unless necessary. Do you understand? May I ask why, Master? Madara asked. I can only say that it is related to Black Zetsu. You two just fight. I will resurrect you if you die. Don't worry. Tsukimi directly put the blame on Black Zetsu. Ever since Black Zetsu ambushed Izuna, Tsukimi took a few people to raid Black Zetsu's house. However, they didn't expect that Black Zetsu had already escaped, and through some unknown method he had actually cleared the Flying Thunder God mark, so they came to nothing. But the only thing to be thankful for was that Tsukimi accepted Black Zetsu's base. Later, Tsukimi discovered that Black Zetsu was really useful. If there was anything that was difficult to explain to several people, she could just throw it to Black Zetsu and let Black Zetsu take the blame, which saved Tsukimi a lot of trouble. After hearing what their master said was related to Black Zetsu, Madara and Hashirama immediately stopped asking questions. After the establishment of Konohagakure, the two also tried to investigate Black Zetsu. Later, they found that Black Zetsu's presence seemed to be traced back to 1,000 years ago, that is, the Sage of Six Paths period, which made the two people very frightened. Moreover, several people also knew that Yujian was a little special. His lifespan seemed to be endless. Decades had passed and his master was still the same as when they first met him, without any change. Could it be that the master was from the same era as the Sage of Six Paths? At this point, no one dared to think about it. After all, the answer they guessed was a bit too exaggerated. Madara and Hashirama chatted with Tsukimi for a while before leaving with their granddaughter. After returning, they began to arrange their own funeral affairs. After all, they would live in Konoha's nursing home after this trip and announce to the public that both of them were dead, so there was nothing wrong with arranging their funeral affairs. Not long after, Yukino and Tsunade's birthday parties were held as scheduled. In order to show the closeness of the two families, their birthday parties were held together. The patriarchs of the major families and the more powerful ninjas in the village came to attend their birthday parties. The entire Konoha village was like celebrating the new year. After the birthday party, Madara and Hashirama returned to their respective homes and took out their long-forgotten weapons. Because Madara and Hashirama were too powerful, there was no friction between the countries and Konoha. That is to say, when the 5-cage summit was first held, the other cage did not know the specific strength of the two, and their tone seemed to look down on them. Now that Madara is the Hokage, he does not have the good temper of Hashirama. So Madara just beat up those people. After all, Madara only kept his good temper for the people he cherished. This time, Hashirama and Madara did not help several countries capture the tailed beasts. Instead, they persuaded several countries to communicate with the tailed beasts and make them the guardian beasts of the villages. However, it is not known whether several countries can listen to them. Since then, the two have never fought each other again. After returning to the village, they followed Tsukimi's suggestion and started selling Nine Tails peripherals in the village, so the weapons were left there for a long time without being used. At the same time, Nine Tails often shows up to help the villagers. With official endorsement, Nine Tails is very popular in the village. Who doesn't like a fox who is capable, cute, and loves to help everyone? Nine Tails never gets tired of this. After carefully wiping their old friend, Madara and Hashirama began to prepare for the upcoming battle. After Madara finished handling all the government affairs these days, he handed the Hokage seal to Tobirama, appointed Tobirama as second Hokage and Izuna as Hokage's assistant, then left the Hokage building, returned to the Uchiha clan, put on his combat uniform, carried his weapons, and headed to the Valley of the End. At this time, Yuejian was sitting quietly above the waterfall in the Valley of the End. After all, this was her former home. In the past, Yuejian's daily pleasure was to monitor Six Paths Laodan on the waterfall. But now, Six Paths Laodan has become a pile of yellow earth, while she is still alive in the world. It is easy to tell who is strong and who is weak at a glance. Yuejian thought shamelessly. Then Madara and Hashirama arrived at the Valley of the End at the same time. Hashirama did not carry fancy weapons like Madara. After all, his body and wood style were his best weapons. Hashirama carried a scroll and a short sword on his back. The scroll was used to help him activate Sage Mode. With this scroll, Hashirama could quickly enter Sage Mode. Master. The two men saluted Yuejian respectfully. This battle was more like a battle for the two of them to start their apprenticeship, and more like a battle to test what they had learned from Yuejian over a long period of time, so both of them put in all their strength and took it very seriously. On the one hand, it is to prove that he is stronger than the other party, and on the other hand, it is to prove his strength to Yuejian. Well, let's start with the determination to kill the other party. Yuejian said. Yes. After saying that, the two of them jumped to the two sides of the Valley of the End, with a rapidly flowing waterfall in the middle. Motor. Hashi hot mom. The two men roared and then fought in the air. At the beginning, no one used large-scale techniques, and they only relied on physical skills to fight back and forth. Soon, the two men fell on the water. The two men stood on the water, their fists whistling, and every collision caused large splashes of water. Gradually, Madara took the lead, forming seals with her hands and using fire style. The huge fire was extinguished and she went straight for Hashirama. Hashirama flashed and a thick tree trunk grew under his feet, lifting him up and avoiding the attack. He then summoned several wooden dragons to rush towards Madara. Madara drew out the round fan and sickle from behind, attached Chakra to the blade and swung it lightly. The sickle seemed to cross the space and cut off the wooden dragon in an instant. The battle intensified and both sides began to fight without reservation. Madara activated the Mangekyo Sharingan, and a huge Susanoo skeleton appeared. Madara then directly activated the fifth stage of Susanoo, and Susanoo rushed towards Hashirama with a long sword in his hand. Hashirama put his hands together and immediately turned on Sage Mode. He clapped his hands and shouted, wood style. Shinshu Senju. A wooden Buddha statue rose from the ground, and countless giant palms slapped towards Susanoo. The collision between the two produced a strong shock wave, and the surrounding rocks were blown to pieces. Susanoo and Shinshu Senju continued to collide, and each impact caused a burst of strong light and violent vibrations. Madara at this time is completely different from the original. After Tsukimi's systematic training, Madara has strength that is not inferior to Hashirama. If Madara uses all his strength in actual combat with Susanoo, the size of Susanoo is completely comparable to that of the Shinshu Senju. As time goes by, the power of both gradually weakens and the chakra consumption is huge. They were both out of breath, but still staring at each other, refusing to give up. At this point, they no longer cared about their injuries, the only thing they wanted to do was prove that they were stronger than the other. Madara gritted his teeth, gathered the remaining energy of Susanoo, and rushed forward with his sickle and fan in his hand. Hashirama also dispersed his Shinshu Senju and clenched his fists to meet the attack. They wrestled with each other with their last bit of strength, and new wounds continued to appear on their bodies. After a moment, both of them were on the verge of collapse. Madara reluctantly picked up the kunai beside her, and Hashirama also drew out the short sword from his waist. Madara used his last burst of strength to stab Hashirama, and Hashirama also swung his short sword at Madara with all his might. The two sharp weapons pierced each other's vital points accurately, and their eyes were full of determination and relief. At this time, the two people from the Warring States period died in battle. Together. Chapter 33. Looking at the two people whose lives were completely lost, Tsukimi walked over and performed the Kisei reincarnation. As Tsukimi's vitality was transferred, the wounds on the two people lying on the ground gradually improved, and their complexions became more and more rosy, until finally Madara and Hashirama sat up together. What does it feel like to be resurrected? Yujian asked the two with a smile. Madara said thoughtfully, how should I put it? It was like I had a very real dream. I dreamt about where I was going, but before I could figure out where I was going, I was pulled back to my body by a mysterious force. Hashirama nodded and said, yes, that's the feeling. On the way, I seemed to vaguely see my father warming himself by the bonfire. I don't know if it was my illusion. After listening to what the two said, Yujian was sure that their souls had not encountered the Sage of Six Paths. Madara said proudly, but fortunately, I defeated Hashirama. He didn't look like a man in his 50s at all, but more like an old naughty boy. Hashirama said, how come you defeated me? It was clearly my knife that stabbed you first. The two of them were about to continue playing, and seeing this, Yujian said, you two should look at each other to see if there are any changes in your appearance. After hearing Yuejian's words, the two looked at each other. Madara, how come you become younger? Hashirama, how come you become younger? Now both of them are in their early 20s. Yujian said, since I have to revive you, I might as well output a little more vitality to restore your bodies to their peak levels. Who doesn't want to be young again? At this moment, Hashirama and Madara both thought of their wives, hoping that if possible, their master could make her younger as well. Of course, Yuejian agreed to their request. After all, similar techniques had already been developed by Itama, so it was not troublesome at all. After returning, Tsukimi took Madara and Hashirama to live in Konoha's nursing home. Madara and Hashirama found their own rooms and began to live in isolation from the world. It is said that they are isolated from the world, but it is not that serious. Now both of them look young, and with a little makeup, they cannot be compared with the older people at all, so they can still go out if they want. After Hikari and Mito arrived, Tsukimi replenished their vitality through the reincarnation ritual. Hikari and Tsukimi were very familiar with each other. Hikari held Tsukimi's hand and told her about interesting things that had happened recently. Mito and Tsukimi were not very familiar with each other, so she was a little reserved. Later, after finding that Tsukimi was very approachable, she was able to chat with her naturally. After hearing Tsukimi's request that people who live in the nursing home should not have their identities discovered by outsiders, the four people began to think about transformation techniques. Because normal transformation techniques are particularly easy to be discovered, they combined Genjutsu, ninjutsu and sealing techniques to develop a new ninjutsu. Tsukimi named this ninjutsu the 72 transformations. The effects of the 72 transformations are very similar to Son Goku's 72 transformations, so Tsukimi named it after the signature ability of her idol, Monkey King. Even Madara did not find the flaw in it when using Mangekyo. Yearn also knew how uncomfortable it was to be locked up in a small building, so as long as they were not discovered, she would let them do whatever they wanted. Then Tobirama became the second Hokage and Izuna became the assistant Hokage. After taking office, Tobirama announced that Madara and Hashirama were unfortunately killed in a sparring match. No one believed this reason at first, but Tobirama asked Anbu to spread the news privately. Gradually, Konoha became more convinced of this explanation. After all, accidents can happen to anyone during a sparring match. But the other 4 ninja villages couldn't believe it, because they were the gods of the ninja world. How could those 2 people die because of fighting with each other? The cages were not so easily fooled, so they sent ambassadors to Konoha to inquire about the news. Tobirama's reply was very vague. That's the situation, believe it or not. All the cages' faces turned black with anger after listening to the new Hokage's words. Didn't they even want to explain? But at this time, the other 4 ninja villages all had some small thoughts. In the past, it was Madara and Hashirama who suppressed the various countries, so no war broke out. But what if the 2 were really killed in battle? If so, then we must make preparations early. So except for the Konoha village, all other villages were mobilized, increasing training efforts and investment in ninja training in order to prepare for the possible war. Tobirama opened a ninja school when Madara was still in office, giving civilians a chance to become a ninja. Now that Tobirama has taken over as the second generation head, the scale of the ninja school has been further expanded, and in 2 years Tsunade and Yukino will be enrolled. Today, the ninja school has produced 38 graduates, including Sarutobi Hiruzen, Shimura Denso, Uchiha Kagami, Akamichi Tofu, Mito Kato-en, Yutain Koharu, and Kasuke, and these students of Tobirama will also be the most core group of people in Konoha in the future. Currently, several people are divided into teams of 2 to carry out various tasks. After Tobirama took office, various countries sent a large number of ninjas to spy on Madara and Hashirama's intelligence. After paying a great price, they came to the conclusion that the 2 seemed to be really dead. As a result, they kept making small moves in private, hoping to obtain more resources through war and plunder. The First Ninja World War was about to break out. Sitting in a nursing home, Tsukimi is playing mahjong with Madara and others. While playing, she is thinking about the First Ninja World War. According to the original work, the First Ninja World War was caused by the deaths of Hashirama and Madara, and was caused by various countries for their own interests. Other countries would certainly find it hard to believe the way Madara and Hashirama died, and they would not dare to act rashly before a thorough investigation, so the time of the First Ninja World War would most likely be postponed. Moreover, at the end of the First Ninja World War, King Kinkaku launched a coup, which led to the death of Tobirama, who went to the Hidden Cloud Village to form an alliance. According to the current situation, it is impossible for Kinkaku and Ginkaku to obtain Nine Tails Chakra, so can they still launch a coup? Yuejian is full of doubts about this. A few years later, Tsunade and Yukino were about to graduate from the Ninja Academy. Unlike other villagers, they were not deceived by the official news. After all, they could go to the nursing home as soon as they were told to. How could they not know where their grandfather was? On a night that couldn't be more ordinary, Tobirama and Izuna finished their work and prepared to go eat some ramen together. As soon as they pushed the gate of opening, they found Tsukimi at the door of the Hokage's office. Yujian said, "Hey, you 2 have worked hard." The 2 were very happy to see Yuejian. They had treated Yuejian as their father for so many years, except that this father looked younger than themselves. "Master, what are you doing here so late? Help me register an identity. I want to be Tsunade and Yukino's instructor." The 2 of them pondered for a while and immediately agreed. If we were to ask who is the best teacher in Konoha right now, it would undoubtedly be Yumi. Moreover, they watched Tsunade and Yukino grow up, so naturally they love them very much. Even if Tsukimi didn't tell them, they wanted her to know about the 2 children. And what's the identity issue? Immediately, Tobirama drafted a document with Natsume Tsukimi's basic information on it, and the elite JA. Nin Natsume Tsukimi, who retired from Anbu, was born. Teacher, according to the current revision of the ninja team, you need to guide 3 to 4 people. Please see which other students you want to guide. Izuna said. Tsukimi glanced at the list and saw 2 familiar names, and said, "Then let's go with Jiraiya and Orochimaru." This simple sentence from Tsukimi disrupted Sarutobi Hiruzen's life. In the original work, Sarutobi Hiruzen could pursue benefits for himself without any scruples, and a big reason for this was that the Sunin were all his disciples, and no one else dared to offend the reputation of Hokage. As the Sunin were their teacher, they tolerated Hiruzen's behavior again and again, which eventually led to many geniuses of Konoha being strangled to death by Hiruzen and Danzo. Now that the Sunin are all his disciples, Yumi is very curious about what Hiruzen will do in the future. Thinking of this, Tsukimi curiously asked the 2 if they had any arrangements for the next Hokage, and the 2 admitted that they might choose one between Sarutobi Hiruzen and Uchiha Kagami as Hokage. Tsukimi nodded. He could guess that it was most likely that Sarutobi Hiruzen would succeed as Hokage. In the original novel, Kagami's death was unclear. Tsukimi guessed that it might be because Hiruzen teamed up with Danzo to kill Kagami, but it was just a guess. "It's so late and you 2 haven't eaten yet. Come to my place and I'll treat you to hot pot and some drinks. If you're lucky, you can even see Hashirama and Madara getting drunk," Tsukimi said in a mean way. Chapter 34. In the morning, Tobirama and Izuna woke up, frightened by a dream. Madara and Hashirama's dance last night was so passionate that they now prefer to believe that they are in Genjutsu. However, things went against their wishes. The 2 were now at a level where they could still distinguish between Genjutsu and reality. There was nothing wrong with the world of Genjutsu. Sometimes reality was even more cruel than the world of Genjutsu. The 2 of them quickly washed up and went to work immediately. If they stayed any longer, they wouldn't know how to face their elder brother. Now that the war is about to break out, most of the Anbu have been sent out to gather intelligence, and there are no Anbu guarding Yuejian's nursing home now. Therefore, Yearn combined the sealing techniques of the Vortex clan to set up a barriers, which is a bit similar to the illusion array in the novels of immortal cultivation. The outside world cannot observe the situation inside, and can only enter through a fixed path. After returning to the Hokage building, Tobirama sent Tsukimi's information to the ninja school. Most of the teachers in the ninja school were outstanding chonin. After seeing the introduction sent by Anbu, several people were wondering who Natsume Tsukimi was and how she could be the teacher of two princesses. Natsume Tsukimi, I've never heard of this ninja. Maybe it's a retired ninja from Anbu. The adults in Anbu, they must be very powerful. Well, Anbu is not something we chonin can discuss, so hurry up and register the roster. A few people quickly completed the formalities for Yearn and waited for Yearn to come and take the students away. A few days later, another class of students graduated from the ninja school. From time to time, an instructor would come into the graduating class and take away a few students. Slowly, there were fewer and fewer students in the classroom until only Tsunade, Yukino, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya were left. Looks like we need to form a team. Tsunade said carelessly. Yukino looked at Jiraiya and Orochimaru a little timidly. Although she knew these two people, they had never spoken a word to each other. Orochimaru nodded to Tsunade, and Jiraiya naturally started chatting with them. Who do you think our instructor will be? Jiraiya asked. It will probably be Master Hiruzen or Master Danzo, Orochimaru replied. Who knows? He hasn't come yet so late. He might be an irresponsible instructor. Tsunade complained weakly, if this teacher doesn't come in a while, I'm going to beat his head off. Before she finished her words, Yukino tugged at Tsunade's sleeve. She didn't join in the conversation but was looking out the window. Just now, she saw a young man enter the school building. That man looked very much like Grandpa Tsukimi. If I guessed correctly, the dog head that Tsunade wanted to blow up was my great-grandfather's head. Sure enough, a gentle voice came, Tsunade, whose head are you going to blow up? Tsunade gritted her teeth and said, of course it's this irresponsible instructor. Tsunade said it without thinking before she could react. When she turned around, she found that the person who came was actually her great-grandfather. Tsunade immediately broke out in a cold sweat, wondering if her great-grandfather was going to be her instructor. Tsunami moved like a rabbit, and immediately ran to Yearn's back, massaged Yearn's shoulders and said, Grandpa, I meant to massage my mentor's shoulders. It must have been very hard for him to get here. You heard wrong, hehe. Is Tsunade calling you great-grandfather? Jiraiya asked, pinching his ear. He was closer to Tsunade and vaguely heard Tsunade calling him great-grandfather, and he was startled. Idiot, how is that possible? This instructor doesn't even look 20 years old. Orochimaru complained about Jiraiya. Yes, how is that possible? Yukino wiped the non-existent cold sweat from her forehead. If her two teammates heard what Tsunade said, Tsunade would be beaten by her great-grandfather again tonight. Okay, the rest of you come out with me. Yearn then led a few people to the rooftop and began the necessary self-introduction for a Hokage. Tsukimi came to the rooftop and said with her back to the others, my name is Natsume Tsukimi, and I will be your instructor from now on. My dream is world nuclear peace, and I don't have any hobbies. At this time, Tsukimi turned around and smiled evilly, Oi, little devils, what is your dream? Tsunade immediately responded, I'll go first. My name is Senjo Tsunade. My dream is to unify the ninja world. My hobby is listening to stories told by my elders at home. Of course, the elders that Tsunade was referring to must be Natsume Tsukimi. Ever since Tsunade heard the story of Qin King Yingzheng, she has been obsessed with unifying the ninja world and is determined to become the first empress. My name is Jiraiya, and I am going to be the Hokage. Jiraiya shouted excitedly. My name is Orochimaru, and my dream is to find the meaning of life. My name is Uchiha Yukino, and my dream is to become a ninja as powerful as my grandfather. After the introductions, Yearn wanted to recreate the classic bell-grabbing segment. He took out a few bells and said to the 4 people in front of him, follow me to the number 7 training ground. I have 4 bells in my hand. I can give you 3 hours to take the bells from me. If you still don't have the bells by the time, you have to go back to school and study again. Tsunade said without any worry, come on then. Then they arrived at training ground number 7. The moment Tsukimi shouted start, Tsunade rushed over and hit the place where Tsukimi had just stood with a powerful punch. Such a mindless attack can't hit me, Tsunade. Tsukimi's figure suddenly appeared on the tree, holding the 4 bells in her hands. Tisk. Tsunade spat. She didn't expect this punch to have any effect, but she still felt a little uncomfortable being dodged so easily. After all, she was just a child. Yukino said, Tsunade, let's discuss the battle plan. Whenever there was a battle, Yukino was like a different person, swift and decisive, without any of her usual timidity. So the 4 of them gathered together and discussed in a low voice. Yukino calmly analyzed, Tsukimi-sensei is very fast, a frontal attack won't work. Orochimaru continued, we need to create some illusions to distract the teacher. Jiraiya scratched his head, I can use the clone technique to disrupt the line of sight. Tsunade crossed her arms and said, then I will find an opportunity to attack. After discussion, the action begins. Jiraiya used the clone technique, and a bunch of illusory clones rushed towards Tsukimi from all directions. Tsukimi chuckled and easily avoided them. After seeing that several people had a sense of teamwork, Tsukimi began to let go. Jiraiya's several clones kept interfering with Tsukimi's vision. At this moment, Yukino used the instant body technique to quietly go behind Tsukimi and stab the kunao in her hand towards Tsukimi's heart without holding back at all. At the same time, Orochimaru threw several shurikens, forcing Tsukimi to dodge. Taking advantage of this gap, Tsunade burst out with amazing strength and instantly appeared next to Yearn, reaching out to grab the bell. When Yumi saw that the few people could cooperate so well in their first battle, she let Tsunade take away a bell. Tsunade threw the bell directly to Orochimaru and prepared to snatch the bell. Tsukimi jumped back and turned her body to avoid Tsunade's further snatch. However, Yukino seized the opportunity, formed seals with her hands, and performed the great fireball technique passed down from the Uchiha clan's ancestors, blocking Tsukimi's escape route. Tsunade exerted force again and grabbed 2 more bells. Finally, Orochimaru released a group of small snakes to trap Tsukimi's feet, and Jiraiya's real body jumped out from among his many clones and snatched the last bell. Yujian watched the 4 people successfully get the bell and smiled with relief. Well, you have passed the test. Then I declare that the 15th Class 7 of Konohagakure is officially established. Chapter 35. After the test, Yuejian took a few people to eat barbecue. In fact, Yuejian wanted to take a few people to eat Ichiraku ramen, but the store was still under renovation and Chuo had just learned to walk. After eating the barbecue, Yujian ordered the 7th team to gather at the number 1 training ground tomorrow morning. After completing basic special training for a few people, they can try to take on some tasks. Tsukimi doesn't like Kakashi, who only starts teaching a few people after he has touched JA. Nin. What's the big deal? Just don't go out if you don't learn well. The next day, Tsukimi divided into 4 shadow clones to guide Tsunade and the others in their studies, while the original body went to the Nine Tails peripheral store to have a look. Now the manager of the Nine Tails peripheral store is Kurama. Kurama's popularity in Konoha is no less than that of Ultraman on Blue Planet to boys and Barbie dolls to girls. Almost every child in Konoha has one, which leads to the villagers' abnormally high love for Nine Tails. After learning that Yuejian had taught a few more students, Nine Tails was very happy and gave Yuejian the store's limited edition Nine Tails doll, saying it was a little gift from their heart. Most of the ninjas who saw the fight between Nine Tails, Hashirama, and Madara were killed. Those who were still alive could not connect the little fox in front of them with such a huge monster. Therefore, the villagers did not know the true strength of Nine Tails. They only thought that Nine Tails was a talking ninja beast. However, this ninja beast was really cute. After leaving Nine Tails peripheral store, Tsukimi went to the number 1 training ground. After arriving, Tsukimi released the shadow clone. As expected, Tsunade and Yukino's strength was far beyond Jiraiya and Orochimaru. After all, the latter is a civilian ninja, and had no channels to contact ninjutsu before graduation. Orochimaru's situation is better. His grades are pretty good, and I don't know where he got the snake-related ninjutsu from. Maybe Orochimaru accidentally entered the Raikai cave when he was a child? Otherwise, it is hard to explain where Orochimaru's ninjutsu came from. But Jiraiya was a complete loser. His physical skills and shuriken throwing skills were average, and his theoretical knowledge was also ridiculously poor. It was only after he accidentally reverse-summoned himself to Mount Maya Boku that Jiraiya's life took a different direction. After checking her memories, Tsukimi gave the dolls to the 4 people in front of her. Tsunade and Yukino were okay because of Tsukimi's relationship with her grandfather, so they were already familiar with Nine Tails. Plus, the 2 girls were good at acting coquettishly. Although Nine Tails, the tsundere, said that it was annoying, he never stopped giving the dolls to the 2 of them, so the 2 were not particularly excited after getting the dolls. But Jiraiya is different from Orochimaru. Both of them come from poor families and they are so stingy that they can't even afford to buy ninja tools, so how can they have the spare money to buy limited edition dolls? Don't you see that even Orochimaru's mouth corners are raised now, let alone Jiraiya? Teacher, is such a valuable gift for us? Jiraiya asked in disbelief. You guys take them. The shop owner and I are old friends. These are not valuable to me. Just take them. Yujian said. Thank you, teacher. Orochimaru and Jiraiya thanked him at the same time. Although Tsukimi said it was not that valuable, they both knew that Tsukimi only accepted it to make themselves feel at ease. I will train you for the next month, and when you are almost done with the training, we will start taking on some missions. After Yuejian finished speaking, several people nodded. Now of course they would listen to Yuejian's arrangements. Yuejian covered the meals for several people this month. Since they did not accept any missions, Jiraiya and Orochimaru had no source of income. Saving some money on food expenses could allow the 2 of them to replace some ninja tools. Because Tsunade and Yukino had already learned how to climb trees and walk on water, Tsukimi arranged for them to learn the changes in the nature of Chakra, and Jiraiya and Orochimaru began their daily life of climbing trees and walking on water. Orochimaru completed both training tasks in just a few days, but Jiraiya was a little behind and it took him a whole week to complete both tasks. After all, teaching should be tailored to the student's aptitude, so Tsukimi arranged for Jiraiya to learn Raise Nan in a book called Sea Level Ninjutsu Encyclopedia. Then Yuejian gave Orochimaru 2 books, one was Sealing Techniques, From Beginners to Burial, and the other was also Sea Level Ninjutsu Encyclopedia, which also included Sea Level Snake Ninjutsu. As for why they didn't give him A level, it's because the 2 of them can't release their chakras at A level and B level ninjutsu now, so it's too ambitious. On the other hand, Tsukimi didn't want their fighting styles to be affected, so she used C level as a transition, and the subsequent development of ninjutsu would mainly depend on the 2 of them. Then Yumi tried to release the shadow snake hand herself, but there was no movement. Yumi guessed that Orochimaru's physique might be some kind of bloodline limit. It was definitely impossible to teach him personally, so Yuejian just gave him the book directly, and after the 2 of them became Chonin, he would give him the B-level ninjutsu encyclopedia as a Chonin gift. Then after comprehensive consideration, Tsukimi believes that sealing techniques will be of greater help to Orochimaru. In the future, Orochimaru's fighting style will definitely be related to snakes, so learning sealing techniques will be very helpful for research and ninjutsu development. After Orochimaru has learned the basic knowledge, Yuejian plans to send him to Idama for further study. Now Idama can definitely be called the number 1 scientist in the ninja world. A month of training passed in a flash. Tsunade and Yukino's strength did not improve much, but Orochimaru and Jiraiya were completely different people after a month of training. With the learning resources provided by Tsukimi, their strength increased by leaps and bounds. After completing the training, Tsukimi started to take on some D-level missions with a few people. During the missions, Tsukimi also met Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo, who are now also guiding JA. Nin. During this time, Tsukimi also chatted with the 2 of them. Hiruzen was okay and talked and laughed with Tsukimi. But Danzo seemed completely indifferent. Maybe Uemi was not very famous in the village. In a series of D-level tasks, the degree of tacit cooperation among the few people was constantly increasing. As they completed the D-level tasks faster and faster, Jiraiya began to shout that he wanted to take on some more difficult tasks. Tsunade agreed with Jiraiya's words. After all, she was the future empress. How could she pick up garbage, weed, and catch cats here every day? She was ready for a big fight. Orochimaru did not comment on this, but Yukino said that teacher Tsukimi must have his own considerations. So the next time when they were taking a mission at the Hokage building, Tsunade and Jiraiya started making a fuss. Tsunade hugged Tsukimi's thighs and cried and shouted for a more difficult mission. Tsunade's behavior almost scared Tobirama to death, and he immediately prepared to pick Tsunade up and beat her up. But just when Tobirama was about to take action, Tsukimi said, "It's up to you." Then Tobirama and Izuna quickly looked to see if there were any sea-level tasks. In fact, when teams usually come to accept sea-level missions, they are distributed by ninjas from the mission center. However, Tsukimi is Izuna's teacher after all. Every time Tsukimi's team accepts a mission, the Hokage and the assistant happen to come to the mission center to inspect and distribute tasks to some teams present. It's just that Team Tsukimi always receives missions assigned by the Hokage. How about this mission, clearing out the bandits around the route between the Land of Fire and the Land of Lightning? These bandits have been a bit arrogant lately, and have had a certain impact on the trade between Konoha and the Hidden Cloud Village. Izuna said, holding up a scroll. Yujian asked a few people, and seeing that everyone agreed, she accepted the task. Gather at the Konoha gate at 12 o'clock tomorrow and disband. Chapter 36. Early the next morning, Tsunade ran to the Uchiha tribe's territory to wake up Yukino. Tsunade was very excited as it was her first time out of the village, so she pulled Yukino and ran to the commercial street. Konoha Commercial Street is not just a street for eating, drinking, and having fun, it also sells ninja supplies such as ninja tools, combat uniforms, and food pills. Tsunade and Yukino are both wealthy people, and their monthly pocket money is enough to cover the annual expenses of an average family. They were about to leave the village to carry out the mission, and both of them planned to be fully armed. They wanted to buy a little bit of everything they saw along the way, such as the best ninja tool bags, the latest combat uniforms, and kunai made of fine steel. Of course, the two of them did not forget Jiraiya and Orochimaru, and prepared one for each of them. Before they knew it, it was almost 11 o'clock while shopping. Yukino and Tsunade went to the Konoha nursing home together to tell their grandparents about their upcoming mission. After learning that their granddaughter was going on a mission, Hashirama and Madara were very happy and kept saying that their granddaughter had grown up. Even though Tsukimi was the team leader, Hikaru and Mito were still a little worried about the two of them, so they held their hands and explained a series of precautions. In this way, time quietly came to 11:30. After saying goodbye to their grandparents, the two hurried to the gate of Konoha, chirping all the way like two larks out of their cage. Soon the two girls arrived at the gate of Konoha. Jiraiya and Orochimaru were already standing there. They quickly handed them the ninja tool bags they had bought. Jiraiya and Orochimaru took the ninja tool bag and opened it, and found that it was divided into areas. The medicine category has the best hemostatic drugs, antidotes, and fine cotton bandages. The weapons include 2 reflective kunai, 10 small shurikens, and a stack of detonating tags. You should know that detonating tags are very expensive and you can't just buy them casually. In the food category, there is a bottle of high-quality Bing Liang pills. 1 pill can cover the consumption of 2 or 3 days. Moreover, they are made by the Akamichi clan through secret techniques, so eating too much will not harm the body. The two were very moved after receiving it. They changed their original ninja tool bags and solemnly put on the ninja tool bags given by the two. At this time, Jiraiya and Orochimaru also let go of their grudges against the two. It turns out that Orochimaru and Jiraiya thought that Yukino and Tsunade, as princesses of Konoha, might not be easy to get along with, and because of their own commoner status, they felt a gap between them and the two. But after communicating, Orochimaru and Jiraiya found that the two were still easy to get along with, especially this time they both brought themselves a ninja tool bag. The two felt that Tsunade and Yukino did not look down on them just because they were civilians. Afterwards, you saw them at the gate and signed, and then they could set off. Along the way, the 4 children felt curious about everything outside and wanted to touch everything they saw. Yujian did not stop them. They were still in Konoha's territory, so it would be difficult to encounter any danger. After leaving Konoha's warning range, Yujian asked a few people to be on alert and told them that he would definitely not take action on this mission. The 4 of them were also quite obedient and continued to move forward in the shape of AA. After walking for a long time, everyone's strength declined, and the sky gradually darkened, so they set up camp under a big tree. Yujian was watching the performance of the few people from the side and found that the 4 were still quite alert. They did not light a fire to cook, but instead took a soldier's ration pill and began to take turns to stand guard and rest. This made Yujian very satisfied. It seemed that the theoretical knowledge they learned was quite good. The next morning, Yukino organized a few people to clean up all traces of life and continued their journey. According to Yujian's estimation, Team 7 would reach the mission location in another hour or 2. Soon they arrived at the mission site. Seeing the bandits constantly taking turns on guard outside the stronghold, they suddenly felt the situation was a bit tricky. After all 4 of them were genin. Tsunade and Yukino might be as strong as Chonin, but if the bandits attacked with bows and arrows and other ranged weapons together, they might get hurt or even killed. So Yukino pulled the 3 of them together and started discussing tactics. First, Orochimaru released the lion majesty he raised to anesthetize the enemy. This kind of snake is very small, and if you don't look carefully, you might think it is an earthworm. And the toxin is not fatal, it just makes people feel very sleepy. Soon after, a group of small snakes slipped out from Orochimaru's sleeves and slowly swam to the bandits' feet. Their tiny fangs pierced their ankles and injected venom into them. After completing this feat, the snake returned to Orochimaru's sleeve. Then several people waited for the poison to take effect. After discussing tactics, they decided that they could not poison everyone, otherwise it would be too obvious. Therefore, Orochimaru only poisoned the captain-like man and several bandits who looked stronger. Oh, I drank too much last night and now I'm almost sleepy. A bandit suddenly said. That's right, but I didn't drink enough yesterday. Do you want to drink more after your shift today? Speaking of which, how long will it take for the shift to change? I can hardly open my eyes. Hey, Yamamoto, how long will it take for the shift to change? You must have drunk alcohol yesterday, you are still so energetic now. The leader-like bandit pointed at a skinny monkey and said, you take the remaining few people to be alert, we will sleep for a while. If anything goes wrong, Laozi will skin you alive. After saying that, a few strong bandits found a comfortable place to sleep. Yamamoto and the remaining bandits glared at the leaders because they had little flesh and were bullied by others every day. After watching the leader fall asleep, Yamamoto whispered, let's go to sleep too. Whoever wants to be on duty can be on duty. The other bandits were a little worried, but they were still too lazy and lay down to sleep. Only a few of them were afraid that the captain would get up and punish them, so they still stayed at their posts. Tsunade winked at Yukino, and the four of them quietly approached the bandits. Orochimaru was the first to draw out his kunai, and rushed towards the awake bandits like a ghost, killing them instantly. Immediately afterwards, Suino and others quickly followed and stabbed the sleeping bandits again. The whole process was clean and neat. After dealing with the bandits, they carefully sneaked into the mountain stronghold. There was a foul smell in the mountain stronghold, and old weapons and sundries were scattered everywhere. Just then, they heard a quarrel coming from a room. Looking through the crack in the door, I saw that several bandit leaders were fighting over property. Yukino suddenly had an idea and signaled everyone to take advantage of this opportunity. They quietly went around to the back of the house and found a vent. Jiraiya gently moved the wooden board of the vent, and Orochimaru sprinkled some poison powder into it. The quarreling of the bandits gradually died down, and soon they heard no more movement inside, so the four men sneaked in. The first one to go in was Jiraiya. He covered his mouth and nose and observed the situation first. Yukino came behind him to support him in time. After seeing that the bandits were all unconscious, Jiraiya gave a signal and several people jumped in. Jiraiya then used wind-style great breakthrough to blow away all the poison powder, and then slashed the remaining bandits' necks. Since the leader was dead, the mission was almost complete. Yujian came to the front of several people and said, how is it? It's inevitable that you are a little nervous when you kill someone for the first time, right? It is indeed a bit uncomfortable. Teacher, are you nervous about killing someone for the first time? Jiraiya continued. Yujian said, this is the first time I kill someone. Suddenly Yujian realized that she seemed to have never killed anyone before. Chapter 37. Suddenly Yujian discovered that she seemed to have never killed anyone. I was stumped by Jiraiya's question and didn't know how to answer. Over the past year, Yuejian has seen too many dead people, because death in war has become commonplace, and Yuejian has long been familiar with it. But if it comes to doing it personally, Yuejian has never done it before. Mr. Tsukimi? Jiraiya asked after seeing that Tsukimi hadn't responded for a long time. Now is not the time to talk about this. Let's complete the mission first. You guys should wipe out the remaining bandits first. Yujian quickly changed the subject. There was a surprise waiting for them among the remaining bandits. Then the four of them dispersed and cleared out the remaining bandits. During this period, when Jiraiya was chasing a small group of bandits, his foot tripped over a very thin silk thread. At this time, Jiraiya guessed that he was ambushed and immediately jumped backwards. Although Jiraiya's reaction was quick, the detonating tag's reaction was even faster. The moment the thin wire broke, the camouflaged detonating tag on the tree trunk next to it sparked and exploded instantly. Fortunately, Jiraiya retreated a little, and although he was blown away, he was not seriously injured. Jiraiya quickly fired a flare and began looking for a shelter to hide himself. I didn't expect my luck to be so good. I met some kids who just graduated from Konoha. Let's see what information I can get from them. At this time, four figures walked out of the jungle. Jiraiya looked at the forehead protectors on their heads and found that the people in front of him were actually from the Hidden Mist Village. We in Konoha have nothing to do with your Kirigakuer, so why are you sneaking into the territory of the Land of Fire? Jiraiya said, trying to buy himself some time. If his teammates came to rescue him at this time, he would still have a chance of survival. Nakamura Yuichi said, why waste time talking to a brat like you? Hashirama Kisaki, go kill him. Yuichi Nakamura, Special J.A. Nin of the Hidden Mist Village, the team consists of 1 Chonin and 2 Genin. Mizukage received news that the Hidden Cloud Village and Konoha were showing signs of peace talks, so in order to prevent the two countries from attacking the Water Country together, he sent some ninjas to the Fire Country and the Lightning Country to gather information. Yuichi Nakamura's team is one of the teams that came to the Fire Country to gather information. Yes, Captain. As she spoke, a girl with sharp teeth walked out of the team. She was the only Chonin in the team. She drew out the short sword and stabbed Jiraiya without any hesitation. At this moment, Jiraiya was thinking in his heart, is my life going to end here? Although he was unwilling, he had no chance of avoiding the attack from the person in front of him. Jiraiya had no chance of winning against Chonin at the moment, not to mention that he was injured. Although not seriously, his movements were somewhat hampered. Although he was about to die, Jiraiya was not afraid at all. He stared at Hashirama Kisaki as if he wanted to kill her with his eyes. Even though the short sword was about to pierce his neck, Jiraiya did not turn his head or close his eyes. He deserves to be called a hero in the future. You have a good eye, Jiraiya. With a ding sound, Tsunade used a kunai to block Hashirama Kisaki's short sword, and at the same time did not forget to praise Jiraiya. Jiraiya looked back and saw Yukino and Orochimaru had also arrived, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Be careful, there are ninjas from the Hidden Mist Village on the other side. At this time, Orochimaru was already helping Jiraiya walk to the back and changing his healing medicine. Tsunade was not too worried after hearing Jiraiya's words. The most urgent task was to determine the strength of the leading ninja on the opposite side, so Tsunade did not retreat, but stood in place to restrain Hashirama Kisaki. After seeing this, Yukino took out a few shurikens from her ninja tool bag and threw them at Nakamura Yuichi and the others. As a member of the Uchiha clan, Yukino's shuriken and kunai throwing skills are beyond the reach of ordinary people. I saw 3 shurikens flying towards the necks of the 3 people at an extremely tricky angle, but if you look closely, you will see that there is another shuriken following closely behind each shuriken, and the shuriken following behind is just in the blind spot of the three people's vision. Nakamura Yuichi raised his kunao to block the shuriken. As a special Nin, he immediately realized that something was wrong, but it was too late to alert the other two genins. He quickly held the kunao to his side to block another shuriken. The other two genins were not so lucky, and one of them was stabbed in the neck by a hidden shuriken. Although the other one dodged the second shuriken, he did not see the steel wire wrapped around the shuriken. Yukino moved her fingers flexibly, and the shuriken that flew over actually flew back in the opposite direction. The genins of the Hidden Mist Village had never seen such shuriken manipulation technology before, and the shuriken that flew back directly pierced the artery in the neck of another genin. All this talk actually happened in just a moment. Yukino's unexpected attack actually reduced the number of genin on the opposing side by 2, giving the 4 of them a huge chance of winning. Through this test, Yukino can confirm that Nakamura Yuichi is at least as powerful as Chanin. At this time, Tsunade had already repelled Hashirama Kisaki, and the 4-member team reunited, keeping a watchful eye on Nakamura Yuichi and Hashirama Kisaki from a distance. At this time, Nakamura Yuichi stared at Yukino and said, "You are from the Uchiha clan, right, with such shuriken manipulation skills. And you have such strength at such a young age, so you must be a genius in the Uchiha clan. Then it seems that there is only one genius in the Uchiha clan who was born a few years ago. Am I right? Uchiha Yukino." Nakamura Yuichi looked at Tsunade again and continued, "If she is Uchiha Yukino, then with such obvious golden hair, you must be Senju Tsunade. I didn't expect my luck to be so good. If I capture you alive, I can find out whether Hashirama and Madara are dead or alive. This is much more important than the news of the peace talks between Konoha and the Hidden Cloud Village." At this point, Nakamura Yuichi was a little excited. Could it be that God was blessing him? Nakamura Yuichi had suspected that the other party had a guidance teacher protecting him secretly, but after testing for so long, there was no movement. In addition, under normal circumstances, when instructors and students go on a mission together, they act together. There is basically no instructor observing the student's performance in secret, because there are too many special situations in the ninja world, and a mistake may lead to the death of the students. So no one would do this unless they are very confident. There are only 4 people in Konoha who are so confident now. 2 of them are said to be dead, and the other 2 are still working in the Hokage building and have not left Konoha. So Nakamura Yuichi wondered if he had really won the jackpot? Whether you can catch us depends on your ability. Tsunade said coldly. She was very unhappy with the arrogant attitude of the person in front of her. Really? Kid, I hope you can still say something like that later. Nakamura Yuichi pulled the samurai sword out of the scabbard, made hand seals and said, "Water style. Mist hidden technique." Soon after, thick fog enveloped the area where the few people were, and they could not see the 4 people huddled together in the distance. Xuanai asked, "Is there any way to find his location?" Orochimaru pondered for a moment and said, "I can give it a try." Then he released a few snakes. It is well known that snakes can sense the infrared radiation emitted by warm-blooded animals, allowing them to see the image of their prey within the electromagnetic band of the radiation energy emitted by the animals. This system is the snake's infrared eye, also called the infrared pit organ. Unexpectedly, the famous silent killing technique was cracked by a few small snakes. By looking at the direction of the snake head, they could know the approximate location of Yuichi Nakamura, but even though they knew it, they were still in unprecedented danger. Snow's forehead was covered with beads of sweat, and she whispered, "How can we break the impasse?" Chapter 38. Snow's forehead was covered with beads of sweat, and she whispered, "How can we break the impasse?" Jiraiya, who had been bandaged at this time, had almost recovered. He tried to use wind escape to blow away the thick fog but to no avail. Relying solely on Orochimaru's little snake to provide direction was also very limited. Nakamura Yuichi's position was changing all the time, and the little snake could not keep up with Nakamura Yuichi's speed at all. "It seems like I'm in a desperate situation. I'm sorry everyone, I shouldn't have signaled you to come over." Jiraiya said guiltily. Tsunade said, "What nonsense are you talking about, Jiraiya? We are a team, understand?" Orochimaru and Yukino both affirmed Tsunade's words. Orochimaru, who had not experienced the tragic death of his disciples, still attached great importance to bonds. After experiencing the deaths of his close friend Kato Dan and his apprentice Senju Ueki, Orochimaru began to think about the fragility of life and pursue eternal life. "I'm sorry, but will Teacher Tsukimi come to save us?" Jiraiya asked. "It shouldn't be. Although Mr. Tsukimi doesn't talk much, he basically does what he says. If he says he won't take action on this mission, then he won't do it." Yukino answered Jiraiya's questions while thinking about countermeasures. Orochimaru asked, "You and Tsunade seem to know Tsukimi-sensei well." Tsunade said, "Teacher Uejian has some relationship with our grandfather. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's get through this difficulty first." When Jiraiya and Orochimaru heard Tsunade's answer, they thought that Tsukimi was the apprentice of Madara and Hashirama, so they were not too surprised. If they knew that Tsukimi was the master of those two, the Kirigakure ninja would have been scared to death on the spot without the need for the Kirigakure ninja to take action. At this time, Nakamura Yuichi did not hear the conversation of several people. After all, he was a special Nin, and his mastery of silent killing techniques was not very good. Therefore, when facing an enemy, Nakamura Yuichi would first move from a farther distance to consume the enemy's energy, and then slowly kill the opponent when the time was almost right. After a few minutes, Tsunade and the others looked obviously tired. The long and high-intensity training was a bit too much for them. At this moment Jiraiya was a little distracted, and Nakamura Yuichi seized this opportunity and immediately shot a kunao at him. Orochimaru noticed something was wrong and also threw out a kunao to shoot him down. The crisp voice woke Jiraiya up, and Orochimaru said, "Idiot, can you be more careful?" Jiraiya scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed. But Yukino knew that it was not Jiraiya's fault. If they couldn't think of a way to break the impasse, they might really have to die today. As time went by, the wounds on the bodies of several people increased. Tsunade couldn't hold back and said, "Yukino, you should think of a solution quickly. If nothing works, just fight them. Having said this, Tsunade was about to rush forward, but Yukino was still calm and stopped her. Shueno said, Tsunade, do you believe me? Tsunade said, nonsense, how can I not believe you? Shueno said, in that case, listen to me. I'm not sure whether Teacher Yujian will take action if he sees that we are in life-threatening danger, but if this continues, the four of us will definitely not be able to escape, so you go up and draw the fire. If Teacher Yujian takes action, then everyone will be happy and we can all survive. If Teacher Yujian does not take action, the three of us will try our best to escape, and I will personally avenge you later. Tsunade nodded, asked Orochimaru about the current location of Nakamura Yuichi, and then rushed over without looking back. Yukino immediately pulled Orochimaru and Jiraiya and ran away in the opposite direction. At this moment, Yukino was extremely calm, as she knew that this was the best solution and that no emotional factors could play a role, otherwise it would only have a counterproductive effect. As for why she didn't let Orochimaru and Jiraiya be the bait, it was because Yukino felt that Tsukimi didn't have much affection for Orochimaru and Jiraiya. In order to encourage Tsukimi to take action, the bait could only be herself and Tsunade. Tsunade's ability to fight the enemy is stronger than hers, and she can hold the enemy back for a longer period of time. And his shuriken and kunai throwing abilities are even better, so he has a greater chance of escaping when trying to escape. Just when the few people had not run far, a figure fell in front of them like a torn sack. Yukino looked carefully and found that the figure was Tsunade. Reason told Yukino that she should not care about Tsunade on the ground and should run away immediately, which was the best solution. But she still stopped, picked up Tsunade and said, Tsunade, how are you? Tsunade. Tsunade was very weak at this time, but she still insisted, don't worry about me, go quickly, the other party is J.A. Nin. Jiraiya and Orochimaru also stopped running and stood in front of Tsunade. At this time, Nakamura Yuichi walked over slowly and said, don't worry, I only injured her severely, I will definitely not kill her. After all, I still need the information about Senju Hashirama, right? At this moment, Yukino was in tears, watching Tsunade's eyes slowly shift to Nakamura Yuichi. She saw that Yukino's originally bright black and white eyeballs had turned blood red at some point, and two ink spots slowly appeared inside, breaking and reorganizing into two Megatama. Has his eyes opened? And it's two Megatama Sharingan, which is a bit tricky. Nakamura Yuichi said. At this time, Yukino stared at Nakamura Yu and said, I want you to die, and then she rushed over instantly. Her speed was far beyond her former self, but a special J.A. Nin was still a J.A. Nin. If Yukino used 3 Megatama, she could kill him, but 2 Megatama could only result in a draw. Besides, Yukino had just opened her eyes and was not yet familiar with the capabilities of the Sharingan. Coupled with the consumption just now, she soon fell into a disadvantage. But Yukino is not fighting alone. There is an old 6 on the tree who is watching everything that is happening. The 6th one was Yuejian. Yuejian said, have you finally opened your eyes, and then took out a handful of steel balls from his pocket. At this time, Yukino was holding a kunai and slashing at Yuichi from top to bottom. Yuichi was about to dodge sideways with such a simple attack, but Yuejian flicked her finger and the steel ball immediately hit Yuichi's knee, causing Yuichi to fail to turn around smoothly. Yukino's kunai directly disabled Yuichi's right hand. With Tsukimi's constant assists, Yukino's chances of winning became greater and greater, and she finally succeeded in killing Yuichi here. Originally, Orochimaru and Jiraiya wanted to hunt down Hashirama him, but someone had to take care of Tsunade at the moment. If they went alone, they would be asking for trouble, so the two of them had to let him escape. Of course, Yuejian knew that one had to root out the problem at its roots, and immediately sent out a shadow clone to kill Sheiji. Shadow clone caught up with Hashirama in just a few jumps. Hashirama looked at the speed of the person coming and knew that she had no chance of fighting him. The cruelty of the hidden mist village was clearly visible at this moment. Sheiji surrendered immediately and said that she was willing to do anything just to save her life. The clone Yujian saw Saki trying to seduce him, and immediately used a raised nan to hit him, and said slowly, Sigma men will not fall into women's traps. Seeing the body of Hashirama's clone was gone, Yujian felt a little nauseous, and immediately disbanded the clone and said, Ugh, it turns out that killing someone for the first time is so disgusting, I quickly disbanded it and disgusted the original body. At this time, Yujian, who was about to go to comfort a few people, received the memories from the clone. She was very upset and hoped that her shadow clone would be more normal in the future. After getting used to this feeling, Yujian walked up to the few people and directly used her huge life force to restore Tsunade, then said, You guys did a great job. Chapter 39. As soon as Tsukimi finished speaking, Yukino fainted. A series of events had made Yukino very tired. After seeing Tsukimi, her tense nerves finally relaxed. Seeing this, Tsukimi and a few others camped near a relatively clean river, waiting for Yukino to wake up. The next morning, Yukino woke up early. After waking up, she seemed to remember something. She immediately looked around and found Tsunade sleeping soundly on the ground, so she felt relieved. At this time, Jiraiya and Orochimaru had already gotten up to practice, because they both found themselves to be a burden to Yukino and Tsunade. Jiraiya and Orochimaru are both proud people, and naturally do not want to be left behind by their teammates, so they asked Tsukimi to give them special training. Hey, Tsunade, get up. Yukino shook Tsunade, trying to wake her up. At that time, Tsunade didn't know if she was too tired or something, so she turned over and continued to sleep. So Yukino let Tsunade lie on the ground and sleep, and she got up to look for Tsukimi. Following the sounds of Jiraiya and Orochimaru training, Yukino soon saw the two men training and Tsukimi who was constantly correcting their problems. Oh, it's Yukino. Did you have a good rest yesterday? Yuejian asked. Thank you for your concern, teacher. The resting place is not bad. After seeing Tsukimi, Yukino guessed that she was able to kill that J.A. Nin yesterday because Tsukimi must have helped behind the scenes. Otherwise, based on her condition at the time, even if she opened the Sharingan, it would not be enough to kill Nakamura Yuichi. Seeing that Yukino had woken up, Tsukimi asked Orochimaru and Jiraiya to stop practicing. After all, there was no rush, and they couldn't concentrate on practicing in the wild. It would be better to return to the village to continue practicing. Then they woke up the sleeping Tsunade and started the journey back to the village. Of course, Nakamura Yuichi and the bodies of the two genins have been put into the sealing scrolls by Jiraiya and Orochimaru. This small sealing scroll was also given to the two of them by Yukino and Tsunade, and its space is just right for packing the bodies. After returning to the village, Tsukimi took a few people directly to hand in the mission. The mission report had already been written by Jiraiya. After arriving, Tsukimi handed the mission report to the staff. After reading it, the staff member said that they did not have the authority to handle the matter because currently all S-level and A-level missions in Konoha Village are issued directly by the Hokage. According to the description in the intelligence of the Tsukimi team, this mission can be completely classified as an A-level mission. Soon Tobirama arrived at the mission center. Under normal circumstances, Tsukimi's team should have gone to the Hokage's office, but why did Tobirama let Tsukimi come to him? He said that he happened to be inspecting the mission center and brought Izuna here. Tobirama and Izuna looked at the mission report and were very satisfied with the performance of the children in Tsukimi's team. In particular, Yukino opened 2 Megatema on this trip, which made them even happier. Considering that the information obtained from Yuichi Nakamura is of relatively high value, it can be indirectly learned that the Hidden Mist Village does not want Konoha to form an alliance with the Hidden Cloud Village, so Tobirama decisively upgraded this mission from C level to A level, with a reward of 900,000 taels. Orochimaru was fine after hearing the reward, but Jiraiya was very happy. After receiving the reward, Tsukimi took a few people and left the mission center. Then Tobirama and Izuna hurried back to the office. After all, there was still a lot of work to be done. After Tobirama left, the director of the mission center said with emotion, "Hokage-sama thinks highly of our department. He has come to inspect it many times in recent times. Everyone must work hard and not let Hokage-sama down." All the staff members excitedly responded to the minister, "Oh." After leaving the Hokage building, Tsukimi divided the 900,000 ryo equally among the 4 people and did not take a penny for herself. The 4 kids said Yuji-un must take half, but Yuji-un insisted, "I won't share any mission bonuses in the future, just treat me to a meal." Seeing Yuji-un was so persistent, several people accepted their share of the bounty. At this time, Orochimaru and Jiraiya expressed their desire to treat everyone to a meal, and then Tsukimi, Yukino, and Tsunade did not refuse and accepted their kindness. After a delicious barbecue, they prepared to go home. Before leaving, Yuejian gave them 3 days off, saying that they could have a good rest during that time. During the rest days, Tsunade and Yukino happily used the bounty to buy a lot of things for their family. After all, this was the first large income they earned with their own ability. The previous D-level mission only paid 5,000 taels, which was not enough to share among several people. During this period, Madara was both distressed and happy to learn that his granddaughter had opened a Sharingan. Later, after careful questioning, he learned that it was the Hidden Mist Village who did this. Madara then said that he had not traveled for a long time and planned to go to the Hidden Mist Village. He heard that the hot springs there were quite good. At this time, Mito walked over, twisting Hashirama's ear, and Hashirama said that he would take him with him. It turned out that Tsunade went to Mito and cried bitterly, saying that she was almost killed by the opponent during this mission, and if it wasn't for Tsukimi's timely rescue, she might not have been able to come back. Upon hearing this, Mito became furious and dragged out the cheerful Hashirama next to him, demanding that Hashirama vent his anger for his granddaughter. In fact, Hashirama was only happy on the surface. When he heard that the Hidden Mist Village might attack Konoha, he naturally would not show any mercy. Didn't you see that in order to protect the village, Hashirama even stabbed Madara? What's the point of a small mist village? Just when Hashirama came out, he heard that Madara was going to the Hidden Mist Village. The two hit it off and decided to set off immediately. As soon as they walked out of the nursing home, Madara suddenly asked, "Teacher Kurama hasn't been out for a long time, right? How about asking him to come along?" Hashirama nodded. He happened to miss Teacher Kurama too, so he thought of it as going on a trip together. Then the two walked to the Nine Tails peripheral store and found Nine Tails. After chatting for a while without saying anything, they talked about going out for a trip. Nine Tails said that he wanted to go too, and then the two of them and the fox began their journey to the Water Kingdom. That evening, Yuji-un was bored and wanted to go find Nine Tails to chat. Unexpectedly, when she reached the door, she saw a notice posted on it, which read, "The store owner has to leave for a week. We will be closed during this period. We apologize for any inconvenience," and there was also Nine Tails' paw print on it. Yuji-un looked at it and murmured, "Such ugly handwriting, how come it looks so much like Hashirama's handwriting?" Afterwards, Yuji-un put the matter behind her and let them do whatever they wanted. After the rest, Yuejian took a few people to the Hokage building again. The mission center was on the second floor of the Hokage building. Unexpectedly, Yuejian met Hiruzen and Danzo again when accepting the mission this time. The three of them went to the mission center together. After approaching, the staff saw Yuji-un and were very happy. After all, the team led by this person completed an A-level mission shortly after their debut, not to mention that there were 2 princesses in the team, so they had a bright future. So he took the initiative to strike up a conversation. "Master Yuejian, are you here to take another mission? You and your team just completed an A-level mission, why don't you take a few days off?" Yuejian shook her head, indicating that there was no need to rest. At this time, Danzo, who had been squinting his eyes and pretending to be deep, opened his eyes and said, "What? No, your rookie team completed the A-level mission." Yuji-un nodded, indicating that you were right. Then he started accepting missions without paying any attention to Danzo. Since the team had completed A-level missions, they could take B-level missions as an exception, but they still did not have the authority to do A-level missions. After accepting a similar B-rank mission, Team Tsukimi left the Hokage building and prepared to head to the mission location, the Land of Lightning. Chapter 40. Teacher, what is our mission this time? Jiraiya asked after leaving the Hokage building. We are escorting a merchant from the Fire Country to transport goods. Our first stop is the Iron Country, and then we will take a ship to the Soup Country. Our employer will exchange some goods there, and finally we will take a ship to the Lightning Country. Once we arrive safely, our mission will be completed. Several people were very excited after hearing this. The last mission was just out of the village and it was so exciting, but this time the mission could even go abroad. Afterwards, Yearn also asked the few people to pack up their things and arrive at the gate of Konoha before 10 o'clock in the morning. At 10 o'clock, everyone had arrived. When the employer saw that most of the members of Yearn's team were fresh graduates, he did not mock them like Desna did. Instead, he was very happy. Because B-level missions are usually taken by Chonin, these kids look like they have just graduated, and it is obvious that the instructor is leading a newly formed team to carry out the mission. Under normal circumstances, the instructor is a JA. Nin or special JA. Nin. Usually, if you ask such a strong person to come forward, it starts with an A-level task, so you spend the money of a B-level task to get the service of an A-level task, and also add 4 genin thugs. Even if this JA. Nin doesn't do much, he will still be needed to save the situation if an emergency occurs. No matter how you think about it, it's a good deal. It was obvious that this businessman was knowledgeable, so the moment he finished his analysis, he asked the caravan to call a few people, and even vacated 2 carriages for them to rest. He was even prepared to squeeze into 1 carriage with the guards. Yearn naturally rejected his enthusiasm. What had to happen was what had to happen. This trip was mainly to train Tsunade and the others. If they really had to take a carriage to travel around the mountains and rivers, it would be better for them not to accept this mission. After registering and signing at the gate, the group set off. Maybe because J.A. Nin was in the team, the businessman Yamamoto Yuzuki was not afraid of any problems at all and traveled very quickly. It was originally expected to take 3 days to reach the ferry in the land of iron, but he arrived there in just 1.5 days. Time is money. It was already evening when the group arrived at the Iron Kingdom. All merchant ships had stopped operating and could not move forward, but they could still load and unload cargo and could only continue moving forward the next morning. At this time, Yamamoto invited several people to the best restaurant at the ferry for dinner, and he paid for all the expenses. After all, Yamamoto is a businessman from the land of fire, and most of the commissions are issued in Konoha. Merchants like himself are not from a big chamber of commerce, and have nothing to do with J.A. Nin, so he must take this opportunity to establish a good relationship with Tsukimi. Even if he fails, there will not be much loss. After eating and drinking their fill, the group checked into the best local hotel. The land of hot springs is the most suitable country for traveling, with dazzling hot springs and a variety of commercial streets. The 4 of them fell asleep in their beautiful fantasies. The next morning, after washing up, Tsunade and the others went out together. When they got outside, they found Tsukimi and Yamamoto chatting casually. Tsunade watched as all the cargo had been loaded onto the merchant ship. Yamamoto chartered the best merchant ship, which could even accommodate horses and carriages. At this time Tsunade asked the members of the caravan curiously when the goods were loaded. The members of the caravan were very honest and said that Captain Yamamoto did not sleep all night, hired some laborers, and took the caravan members to load the goods overnight for fear of delaying the ninja's time. Tsunade and the others felt a little uncomfortable after hearing this. After all, the caravan hired them to protect them, and yet they were so humble. Then Yearn called a few people to board the ship. Maybe it was Yamamoto's attitude that made them realize the importance of strength. Not long after the ship sailed out, the 4 of them asked Yearn to train them. Yearn thought about it and it was not a bad idea. Training at sea still has a different flavor. Yearn picked up a few people and threw them into the sea. After all, they were well trained and adjusted their posture and stood on the sea in the first time. But soon they discovered that this kind of training was very different from treading water. If you were treading water, there wouldn't be such big waves in the river, but now there are constant waves on the sea. If you can't adjust your chakra in time, you will fall into the sea. Soon several people were going in and out of the sea like dumplings. Not only did they have to try hard to stay on the water, but they also had to make sure they were not out of touch with the ship. The method was simple but the effect was remarkable. In this way, Yearn would fish out anyone who was exhausted, let them rest for a while, and then throw them back into the sea when they were done. Just like learning to swim, if you start at the hellish difficulty, you will always learn the fastest, and the instinct for survival will stimulate your greatest potential. Tsunade relied on her good physical strength and completed the training quickly without taking a rest. Yukino, probably thanks to her Sharingan, had great control over Chakra, and she was able to stand firmly on the sea surface after just 1 or 2 rounds, and it didn't take Orochimaru and Jiraiya too long to complete it. Then Jiraiya floated up and said, "Teacher, this isn't too difficult." Yearn chuckled and said, "This is only the first stage. There will be a second stage next." After that, Yearn used the shadow clone technique to create 4 clones. Yearn said to them, "I'm counting on you." The clones walked to the side of the boat with an evil smile on their faces, and at the same time, they gathered Rei's Nan in their hands. One of the clones got a pair of sunglasses from somewhere, stepped on the railing, looked at the people on the water and said, "Little ghosts, are you ready?" Jiraiya's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and he said, "Master, you can't be so cruel." As soon as he finished speaking, a Rei's Nan hit Jiraiya's feet. He quickly dodged, but although he dodged the Rei's Nan, he could not avoid the splash. Jiraiya, who was not very experienced in the sea, fell directly into the sea. The remaining 3 people looked at the Rei's Nan that was getting closer and closer and shouted, "Jiraiya!" Jiraiya, who had just emerged from the sea, suddenly realized that there was nothing bad in the sea. At least he didn't have to face the cruel reality. More than an hour later, Yearn woke up from his lunch break and wanted to see how the others were doing in their training. As a result, he saw a scene that he would never forget in his life. I saw 4 shadow clones with clear division of labor. The one wearing sunglasses condensed Rei's Nan in his left and right hands at the same time, and threw Rei's Nan continuously into the sea like a strong wind, accompanied by the brother with sunglasses laughing wildly. In order to let Tsunade and the others see more clearly, the other 3 clones actually started dancing the gangster dance on the hull. Yes, on the hull. They even used transformation techniques to turn into Narancia and the others, looking like a professional team. So the scene before Yearn's eyes was this: the man with sunglasses laughing wildly kept throwing the raised nan, the continuous screams of Tsunade and others came from the sea, and 3 geniuses in strange costumes were dancing on the ship. Yujian felt that she might not be fully awake yet and needed to go back to sleep for a while. It was not until the evening that Yujian decided to face reality. He walked out of the room again and saw that Tsunade and the others were still standing firmly on the sea even under the bombardment of raised nan, but the light in their eyes seemed to be gone. At this time, Yujian called several clones and asked a serious question. Yujian said, "Is there any way to not synchronize the memories of you guys?" The clone waved his hands, indicating that it was none of his business, and then he resolved it himself. After digesting the memories after synchronization, Yumi didn't know what to say. She just pulled Tsunade and the others out and praised everyone for the results of the day's training. Seeing that they were all tired, Yuejian asked them to go and rest quickly, and then she turned around and went back to the house, feeling a little embarrassed to see anyone. Just as Jiraiya was about to leave, Tsunade's arms were around his neck and Yukino and Orochimaru also came over. Tsunade asked, "Jiraiya, where do you want to go?" Jiraiya, ah. Chapter 41. Good morning, teacher. Oh, Jiraiya, what's wrong with your eyes? When they woke up in the morning, the ship was about to arrive at the land of hot springs. Jiraiya got up and greeted Tsukimi who had just gone out. Yujian turned around and saw that Jiraiya had panda eyes at some point, and even his nose seemed a little crooked. I fell. I accidentally slipped and fell like this yesterday. Just when Jiraiya wanted to cry about his experience, Tsunade and others came out of the room, so Jiraiya quickly changed his words. Tsukimi said, "Really? Then you fell pretty hard." Tsukimi could guess that Jiraiya must have been beaten by his teammates, but Tsukimi could only say well it was a good beating so that Jiraiya would remember it. Speaking of which, Jiraiya and Naruto were a bit similar when they were young. They would become arrogant as soon as they learned something, probably to prove that they were not the last one. The ship had already docked at noon. The Kingdom of Hot Springs was indeed a country with an extremely developed tourism industry. Looking at the commercial street that was completely different from Konoha, the interest of several people was completely piqued. It just so happens that Yamamoto needs to exchange some goods here and can only leave at noon tomorrow. Moreover, Hot Spring Country has always been a very peaceful country and does not need protection here, so everyone has a day to play. Seeing that they were in high spirits, Yujian naturally would not do anything to ruin the atmosphere, so she let them go around on their own. Except for not being allowed to go to some places that were forbidden by the 3 ninja rules, they were free to do anything else as long as they came back early at night. After saying that, Tsunade took Yukino and ran away. Orochimaru and Jiraiya nodded to Tsukimi and left with their arms around each other. Tsunade and Yukino stopped in front of a jewelry store, where various exquisite shell necklaces were displayed. Suino picked up 2 necklaces made of shells, one was sky blue and the other was lotus green. Looking at them against the sunlight, the shells sparkled with a charming luster. Seeing this, Tsunade paid the money without saying a word and gave the sky blue necklace to Yukino. The two then passed by a mask shop. The masks inside were extremely exquisite, so Yukino immediately bought 5 masks, one for each of the 5 members in the team. On the other side, Orochimaru and Jiraiya walked into a small shop that looked like a used shop. If they were lucky, they might be able to find some good things. Jiraiya was curiously flipping through a booklet that looked like it was about a fight between toads, while Orochimaru was studying a small snake carved from wood. In the end, they each bought a copy as a souvenir. Of course, the 2 of them also picked out some gifts for Yuejian and others in other stores. As the sky gradually darkened, the 4 of them gathered at the agreed location with a lot of harvest. Tsunade and Yukino excitedly showed off what they bought. Yujian had been waiting there for a long time. Looking at the 4 people full of energy, she nodded with satisfaction. At this time, Yukino took out the masks she bought, and everyone got one. Yukino's own mask was a cat, while Tsunade, Jiraiya and Orochimaru's masks were all animals corresponding to the holy places where they would be in the future. Tsukimi couldn't help but sigh that fate was really hard to explain. The mask that Yujian got was shaped like a small green animal, which to be honest looked a bit like a Kylan. Since we have come to the land of hot springs, we must take a hot spring bath. Although Konoha has hot springs, they are far less distinctive than those in the land of hot springs. Everyone came to the hot spring hotel and each chose a suitable kimono to change into. Tsunade wore a light pink kimono with delicate cherry blossom patterns embroidered on it. Her hair was loosely draped over her shoulders. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, and her eyes were lively and playful. Yukino chose a kimono with white as the main color, which was embroidered with light blue ice flowers. She looked like an elf in the ice and snow. Her figure tied with a belt was slender and graceful. Her cold face looked more delicate after putting on the kimono, and her long eyelashes fluttered. Maybe it was embarrassing to wear a kimono in front of everyone, so Yukino kept hiding behind Tsunade. Jiraiya put on a black kimono with dark blue patterns. His originally unruly look now looked more stable, but his panda eyes still looked a little funny. Orochimaru was wearing a dark purple kimono with silver snake patterns faintly visible on it. Combined with his pale face and slender eyes, he exuded a mysterious aura. Tsukimi changed into a particularly simple pure white kimono. Unexpectedly, such a monotonous dress did not look out of place on Tsukimi. An indescribable otherworldly aura enveloped Tsukimi, and several people were stunned. After changing their clothes, they headed for the open-air hot spring, which of course was divided into men's and women's baths. In the mist, Tsunade and Yukino slowly stepped into the warm spring water, and a feeling of comfort instantly spread throughout their bodies. Tsunade gently lifted the hair by her ear and teased Yukino for her timidity with a smile. On the other side of the wooden wall were Tsukimi and his companions. Jiraiya walked into the hot spring with his head sticking out. Orochimaru rarely complained, where did the panda come from? So everyone's laughter and joy echoed around the hot spring pool, and the day's fatigue gradually dissipated. The next morning, Yuejian took the 4 people to visit the specialty shops in hot spring country, and introduced the 3 prohibitions of genin to them. If possible, he still hoped that Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru would not be infected with the same problem. The most important thing is Jiraiya. I really don't know who he learned this bad taste of peeping at others taking a bath from. Could it be that it was Sarutobi Hiruzen who taught him? Uemi swore that if Jiraiya peeks once in the future, she would break one of his legs. Let's see when he will learn his lesson. There is nothing wrong with Orochimaru's human experiments. After all, without human experiments, many major breakthroughs in the medical field would simply not be possible. So Tsukimi supports Orochimaru in conducting human experiments, but he must not harm people from his own village. At least Yujian has not noticed any signs of Tsunade's gamble. Now Tsunade is thinking about unifying the 5 countries and becoming the greatest emperor of all time. It was almost noon, so several people headed to the dock. After all, they couldn't let their employer wait for them, that would be wrong. When they arrived, Yamamoto's cargo had been almost loaded. Perhaps they felt that this trip was too simple and the money was too expensive, so Tsunade and a few others went up to help load and unload the cargo. With the help of several people, the cargo was loaded quickly, and then the merchant ship set off for the last stop of this journey, the Kingdom of Thunder. Speaking of the Land of Lightning, Tsukimi couldn't help but think of the 2 tails and the 8 tails. Unexpectedly, this time there was no Hashirama to distribute the tailed beasts. The other countries captured the tailed beasts with their own strength, and whoever owned the tailed beasts before still owned them now. At this time, Takanan village was also a powerful village. Kazekage, under the mediation of various forces, 7 tails cha. Mei was still given to Takigakuer. When there is no war, the living environment of merchant ships is actually very good. Business is an important source of income for every country. For example, when arriving in the Fire Country, there will be Konoha's ninjas to clear out the surrounding bandits and ensure the safety of the caravan. As long as the safety of the caravan can be guaranteed, many merchants will naturally be willing to come. The more merchants who come, the more trade there will be, and the country will naturally earn more income from taxes and sales of goods. Therefore, every country still attaches great importance to the maintenance of public order, and some countries will even send ninjas to protect passing caravans. Except for a poor Mizukage who was controlled by the Sharingan at that time and had been implementing brainless policies, this was the only family that made the villagers live such a hard life despite such good maritime trade conditions. When they got on the boat, Yujian looked at the bored people and prepared to teach them the art of spiritualism. Chapter 42. The class of Natsume Tsukimi started. Natsume gathered a few people on the deck and started talking about the history of spiritualism. The summoning technique, the innate ninjutsu of the Sage of 6 Paths, was recorded by him in the Book of Ninja. Later, with the passing of the Sage of 6 Paths, the summoning technique gradually disappeared from the ninja world. Then the founders of Konoha Village, Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, learned the summoning technique by chance and popularized it when Konoha was first established. As long as the contribution points are sufficient, the summoning technique can be exchanged. So the major families in Konoha that had just established the village began to cultivate summoning beasts or establish relationships with some ninja beast families. For example, the Uchiha clan signed a contract with the Ninja Cat clan. The Inuzuka clan was luckier. They had raised ninja dogs for generations and had long been close friends. With the summoning technique, they could summon ninja dogs to their side anytime and anywhere. Of course, there are some lucky stars who may encounter a summoning beast that is very compatible with them in the wild. If they can tame it or become friends with it, they can also sign a summoning contract. For example, I heard some time ago that when Sarutobi Hiruzen was on a mission, he encountered a monkey tribe and signed a summoning contract with a monkey called Urobuchi, which greatly increased his strength. In short, summoning is a ninjutsu with a very high upper limit and a very low lower limit. If you can meet a summoning beast that matches you, then it is not a dream that your overall strength will grow by leaps and bounds. But if you can't contract anything, then it's no different from not learning it at all. At this time, Orochimaru and Jiraiya have not yet realized how lucky they are to be taught by Tsukimi. Let alone other things, just ask Sarutobi Hiruzen if he can give you the C-rank ninjutsu encyclopedia. Even if he can give it to you, do you dare to ask him? Normally, it is okay for a teacher to teach students a few ninjutsu, but any more must be exchanged through one's own contributions. Exchanging so many C-level ninjutsu requires a huge contribution. The Flying Thunder God technique that Jiraiya gave to Minato was exchanged by Jiraiya with his own merits. Only Tsukimi could teach ninjutsu to a few people without any scruples. After all, most of the ninjutsu in Konoha were taught to Madara and Hashirama by themselves, so Tobirama didn't dare to say anything when Tsukimi taught summoning techniques to a few people in advance. At this time, several people are very yearning for summoning techniques. Tsunade and Yukino have been practicing with their grandfathers, and they have never seen them use summoning techniques, so they really don't know this ninjutsu at present. Several people chattered and asked what Yujian's summoning beast looked like. Yujian said, "You also know my summoning beast. It is the owner of Nine Tails Peripheral Store, Kurama." As she spoke, Tsukimi performed summoning to summon Nine Tails. Before the smoke from the summoning had dissipated, Tsukimi sensed an astonishingly unstable chakra. Upon closer perception, she found that Nine Tails had actually condensed a tailed beast ball. Just when Yuejian was stunned, the tailed beast ball flew out and hit an uninhabited island near the Land of Lightning, directly destroying the island. The huge roar frightened everyone on the boat except Yujian. Yujian immediately grabbed Nine Tails' collar and said with a fake smile, "What? Do you want to kill me?" Nine Tails said hurriedly, "I'm not. I didn't. Let me explain. The time goes back to 30 minutes ago and the location is outside the Hidden Mist Village. Madara and Hashirama, who decided to avenge their granddaughter, had already lurked outside the Hidden Mist Village. Nine Tails still had no idea why they came to this remote place. Could it be that they were here to see Three Tails and Six Tails? Nine Tails couldn't help but ask the two about the purpose of their trip. Madara and Hashirama told Nine Tails the whole story. Nine Tails was furious. How dare the Hidden Mist Village bully the granddaughter of his apprentice? Who gave them the guts? Three Tails and Six Tails? So Nine Tails asked the two if they knew where the Mizukage building was. Madara and Hashirama thought that Nine Tails wanted to sneak into the Mizukage building, so they pointed out the location to it. Who knew that Nine Tails didn't say anything and started to condense the tailed beast ball? Madara and Hashirama were only thinking about how to take revenge on the Hidden Mist Village, and for a moment they did not notice that Nine Tails was condensing the tailed beast ball. By the time the two of them noticed the huge chakra fluctuations, it was too late, the tailed beast ball had already been condensed. Seeing Nine Tails' determined eyes, Madara and Hashirama knew that Nine Tails was going to launch the tailed beast ball, and they rushed forward like crazy to try to stop Nine Tails. This time they were just planning to beat up the Mizukage, not to massacre the village. But it was too late, so the two began to pray, hoping that the gods could alleviate the current crisis. Maybe there really was a god who responded to the two of them, because Nine Tails suddenly disappeared before the tailed beast ball was launched. Madara said, "This fluctuation is probably spiritualism." Hashirama nodded and said, "It should be the teacher who sent Nine Tails over." Madara was sweating profusely as he said, "Then the teacher will not be killed by the tailed beast ball, will he?" At this time, Hashirama also lost his brilliance and said, "It shouldn't be that serious. This is the way it is. If you still don't believe me, I really have no other choice." Nine Tails said in a tearful voice. Yearn said, "I will trust you for once." Then he turned to Tsunade and the others and said, "How is it, do you feel the power of the summoning technique?" The four of them looked at the disappearing island from afar and nodded involuntarily. At this moment, underground on the island, Black Zetsu was crying silently, as if he had suffered a great injustice. "My name is Aoi Tsutsuki Black Zetsu. An unimaginable disaster has happened around me. I want to survive and rescue my mother. Originally my home and everything I did was in a place called Mountain Cemetery. Unfortunately, I was framed by a villain. I just looked at him, and he used the tailed beast balls to hit me several times and almost killed me. And then I just did something bad to his son, but he brought people to raid my house. Everything I have accumulated over thousands of years, was taken away by this thief. So I left my hometown, gave up my business in the Fire Kingdom, and came to the Water Kingdom. Just as I dug a base under the Mizukage building and set up barriers, I thought that even if Natsume Tsukimi was heartless, he would not be able to blow up the Mizukage building. I'm so stupid, really. I only thought that Natsume was heartless, but I didn't expect that he was so heartless. What did Mizukage do wrong that he actually let Madara and Hashirama bring Nine Tails to launch the tailed beast ball, and Natsume actually wanted to bury the entire Kirigakure with him? No. He must have discovered me. Could it be that he didn't care if he killed so many people just to kill me? Devil, Natsume Uemiya, you really are a devil. No, I have to leave quickly, otherwise it will be too late. Maybe Mizukage really has offended Natsume Tsukimi. I will run away first and see what happens. Maybe I am too sensitive. At this point I want to go far away, and use the Mayfly technique to its maximum power, passing from the land under the sea to the land of thunder and then stopping. I have cleared the flying thunder god mark, and I don't believe that you, Uemi, can still find me. Ah, the weather in the land of lightning is still good, but the land of water is simply not a place for human beings to stay. If things really don't work out, I will use this uninhabited island as my base. It is safe and reliable. No, what is that, the tailed beast ball? Why is Nine Tails here? Damn it, they are coming for me, run away quickly. At this time, Black Zetsu was crying silently deep underground, muttering, "Natsume Uejian, what do you need to let me go?" Chapter 43. Hey? Tsukimi, are these your new disciples? How come Tsunade and Yukino are among them? After explaining the whole story in a panic, Nine Tails finally had the time to look around. It only heard that Tsukimi brought students, but it didn't hear that she brought Yukino and Tsunade. After saying that, Nine Tails broke free from Uejian's iron grip, walked up to the four little ones, and said, "Little Tsunade, little Yukino. It was the ninjas from the Hidden Mist Village who bullied you, right? Don't worry, we won't suffer this loss. Just now, my great-grandfather almost blew up the Hidden Mist Village. If Uejian hadn't summoned me, there would be no Hidden Mist Village now." Several people broke out in cold sweats after hearing this. What did it mean that the Hidden Mist Village was almost destroyed? Tsunade and Yukino didn't know the true strength of Nine Tails. Their only impression of Nine Tails was that they were very cute ninja beasts. Although their grandfather called it Kurama teacher, the two of them only thought that Nine Tails had only guided them when their grandfather was very weak, and his overall strength must be average. They didn't even think that Nine Tails was a tailed beast. "You are all Uejian's disciples, so you can sign my spiritual scroll." Uejian, where is my scroll? Hurry up and let the kids sign it." Ujian looked at Nine Tails who was yelling at her, came over and picked it up again, and said, "They are not my disciples yet, they are just my students, and they will have more suitable summoning beasts in the future. Those two children are Orochimaru and Jiraiya, and you know the reason." Nine Tails nodded and said, "I see." Ujian had told him about the major events in the ninja world, so he was sure that what they said about having a more suitable summoning beast was true. "Okay, we don't need you here anymore. Please tell Madara to perform a genjutsu on him after he and Hashirama beat up the Mizukage. He may need it in the future. What about the Hidden Mist Village? Everything remains the same. For now, just make Mizukage forget the memory of you guys beating him up. This genjutsu is just a seed. Use it if you can. If not, forget it." After Nine Tails revealed the truth, Tsukimi lifted the summoning technique, and Nine Tails returned to Hashirama and Madara. After returning to the original place, Nine Tails looked around and asked Madara and Hashirama, "Hey? Why is there such a thick fog?" Hashirama said, "I used the mist hidden technique. The fluctuation of your tailed beast ball was too great and was noticed by the mist hidden village. So I simply used the mist hidden technique to cover the entire mist hidden village so that they couldn't find us." Nine Tails said, "This ninjutsu of the Tsukimi cult is quite useful." Madara agreed, "It is indeed very useful, but it seems that the Hidden Mist Village has also developed this ninjutsu. It seems that the Hidden Mist Village also has some powerful people." Nine Tails remembered what Ujian said at this time, and conveyed Ujian's meaning to the two people. Although the two people could not quite understand the deep meaning of Ujian's actions, they still decided to act according to Ujian's words. Taking advantage of the thick fog, several people took the opportunity to reach the Mizukage building. Because Hashirama had a huge amount of chakra and his chakra was in the fog, the ninjutsu that was originally used to hide the body and interfere with perception was turned into a perception ninjutsu by Hashirama. As long as the enemy was in the fog, Hashirama would know his location. Then the two men and the fox swaggered into the Mizukage building. Now all the guards gathered around Mizukage to protect him. Unfortunately, these people met Madara and Hashirama in their prime who were resurrected by Tsukimi. The guards and Envy were knocked out by the two before they could even dance. Second, Mizukage Hoshiki's perception is also quite good. Even if there is thick fog, he can still sense the situation roughly. He obviously knows that the strength of the person coming is far beyond his ability to deal with. Who else in the ninja world can have such strength? At this time, Hashirama deliberately dispelled the fog in the office, and Hoshiki Gengetsu could finally see the situation in the office clearly. No? Why are you two here? Aren't you dead? Hashirama. Madara. Madara summoned a skeleton and punched him, saying, "Little mustache, if you can talk, just say more." Huangyu hurriedly explained, "No, that's not what I meant." Madara stepped forward again and said, "Then translate for me what you mean." Ghost Lantern Huangyu, I. At this time, Hashirama seemed to have forgotten that he was here to beat up Hoshiki. His peacemaker nature was aroused again, and he said, "Madara, stop bullying him." Madara was a little silent at this moment. He began to doubt why he brought Hashirama here in the first place, so he said, "Hashi-lama, shut up and squat in the corner." Hashirama said oh and smiled innocently at Hoshiki Huangyu, "Sorry, I can't seem to help you." Then he squatted down in the corner. This situation made Hoshiki Gengetsu very scared, and he thought to himself, "What's going on? Does it mean that even Hashirama can't save me? Is my life going to end here?" Madara walked to Huangyu's desk, sat on it and said, "Little mustache, do you know why we came to see you today?" "I have no idea." Madara jumped down from the table, walked up to Guideng Huangyu and said, think about it carefully." Guideng Huangyu was sweating profusely, his head was almost smoking, but he still couldn't figure out how he had offended the two people. So Guideng Huangyu said, "Why don't you just kill me?" Madara asked, "Kill you? Why should I kill you?" Huangyu said helplessly, "If you don't want to kill me, what are you doing here today?" Madara didn't answer him, but changed the subject and said, "I have two precious granddaughters, one is Yukino and the other is Tsunade. They were almost killed by the special JA. Nin of your Kirigaku some time ago. Where is that special JA? Nin now?" Hoshiki Huangyu asked cautiously. He hated that special JA. Nin from the bottom of his heart. Why did he have nothing better to do than to provoke Madara's granddaughter? "Even if I have provoked you, could you please be more careful? Now I don't know what to do." "Dead. Killed by my granddaughter Yukino using the Sharingan. Good death. By the way, has your other granddaughter Tsunade opened the Sharingan?" Hoshiki Gengetsu is indeed a man who can develop the steam danger and violent power. This kind of ninjutsu is an amazing ninjutsu no matter from which angle you look at it. A ninjutsu like this cannot be imagined without an exaggerated imagination. So, you see, even when Hoshiki Huangyu was facing a life and death crisis, he still had the mood to pay attention to whether Tsunade had opened the Sharingan. "Although Tsunade is my granddaughter, her last name is Senju." Madara explained. At this time, Hoshiki Huangyu's pupils were shaking. He blinked his eyes and looked at Madara, then blinked his eyes and looked at Hashirama who was squatting in the corner. Hashirama smiled at Huangyu, and Huangyu suddenly said, "I understand." Madara looked at Huangyu who was brainstorming and said coldly, "You'd better die." Guideng Huangyu quickly said, No, Master Madara, I am really afraid of you. If you have anything to say, can you please tell me directly?" Madara was also annoyed by Huangyu's behavior. Seeing Huangyu with such a good attitude, Madara really didn't know how to start for a moment. He just punched her twice and then used Genjutsu to erase Huangyu's memory. It was called clearing, but the principle was just to hide this memory by relying on the power of Mangekyo. Sharingan. After being hit by Genjutsu, Huangyu fell down, and the person on the ground slowly woke up shortly after Madara and others left. The escort team searched all around for half a day but did not find a single wounded person. After a few days of alert, the Hidden Mist Village resumed its normal working state. On the first day of resumption of work, an Enbu ninja came to report on his work, saying that a ninja team had lost its trace in the Land of Fire. When Huangyu heard this, she broke out in a cold sweat for some reason. The Enbu ninja didn't notice Huangyu's strangeness, and said again, "Master Mizukage, do you want to send some more teams to the Land of Fire to investigate the situation?" Guideng Huangyu's hair stood on end instantly, and he said, "No. In addition to the spies who have been planted, all the teams operating in the Fire Country must return immediately." Chapter 44. Hoshiki Huangyu didn't know why he gave such an order, but his subconscious told him not to send ninjas to the Fire Country now, because the Fire Country was very terrifying. After the Enbu personnel gave the Mizukage's order, they began to report other matters, including the inexplicable fluctuations of the tailed beast ball a few days ago and the mist-hidden technique that enveloped the entire mist-hidden village. Guideng Huangyu still felt uncomfortable when he suddenly remembered this incident, but he didn't know the source of his discomfort. Considering that the mist-hidden technique requires a huge amount of chakra to perform, and is accompanied by the fluctuations of the tailed beast ball, the Enbu ninja speculated that it might have been done by Three Tails Isabu. Seven Tails had been sealed in Jinchuriki's body at this time and had no time to commit the crime, while Three Tails was still free range, so the Enbu ninja analyzed that it might be Three Tails who did it. At this moment, regardless of whether Three Tails did it or not, Hoshiki was ready to beat Three Tails up, because for some reason he felt a lot of anger in his stomach that needed to be released, and Three Tails was a good opponent. Where is Three Tails now? In the sea northeast of the Land of Water. Okay, I'll be back soon. Not long after, Guideng Huangyu arrived at the location where Three Tails was. Seeing Three Tails basking in the sun on the sea lazily like a turtle, Huangyu became very angry. Steaming danger and violence. The current state of the Hidden Cloud Village is similar to that of the Hidden Mist Village. At this time, Raikage went to beat up the two tails which had not been sealed yet because the nearby island was destroyed by the tailed beast ball. The two tails and three tails were beaten so hard that they were dazed and had no idea why the people in front of them were beating them. Maybe it was because they felt wronged, so the two-tailed beasts fought extra hard, but in the end they were no match for the second Mizukage and second Raikage. However, Raikage had already beaten the two tails a few days ago. After all, Raikage did not faint in his office like some unlucky guy. Yearn, who sent 9 tails away through spiritualism, set out to teach a few people spiritualism. Let me first explain the order of seals in the spiritual arts: Hai, Su, Yu, Shen, Wei. Then this is the scroll for practicing the spiritual arts. There are some precautions in it. When you practice, you must stop at the last step and never perform the spiritual arts. Okay, start practicing. I'll keep an eye on you and tell you if you have any questions. If you don't understand anything, just ask me. Then Tsukimi gave each of the 4 people a pendant with the Flying Thunder God technique engraved on it. Tsukimi was afraid that they would use summoning techniques casually, and because there was no contract signed, it was very likely that they would be sent to Mount Maya, Boku or other places like Jiraiya in the original work. As an S-rank ninjutsu, Flying Thunder God could have been obtained long ago from Tobirama's 3rd stage reward, but Tobirama, Izuna, and Nine Tails have been stuck at the 4th stage, with no progress for many years. In fact, the focus is on other places. The fact that Jiraiya was able to reverse summon himself to Mount Maya, Boku, was actually due to the work of the giant toad. If an ordinary person had not signed a contract, it would be very likely that he would be summoned to a remote place. Speaking of this, Tsukimi remembered that when she was watching Hokage, the setting of Mount Maya, Boku in the comics and the anime were different. The comics said that the summoning contract of Mount Maya, Boku, was passed down from Jiraiya's family, which means that Jiraiya's grandfather's generation started to walk with the toad of Mount Maya, Boku. In the anime version, Jiraiya used psychic power to communicate with himself blindly. After Tsukimi's investigation, he found that the fact was exactly as the anime version said. Jiraiya and his family had never signed a contract with Mount Maya, Boku. If you think about it carefully, it makes sense. If Jiraiya and his family had signed a contract with Mount Maya, Boku, long ago, how could they be so unknown? The 3 big toads in Mount Maya, Boku, are all capable of fighting with one tail, so Jiraiya came to Mount Maya, Boku, by accident. After Yuejian finished speaking, the 4 of them began training. During the training, several of them had problems to varying degrees, and Yuejian pointed them out. Just when the few people had almost completed their training, the ship had already arrived at the Land of Thunder, and the mission was completed without any trouble. Although Yuejian and his companions did not contribute much on this trip, Yamamoto still expressed his gratitude to them and hoped for more cooperation in the future. After greeting Yamamoto, Yuejian left with his team. On the way back, Yuejian asked everyone whether they wanted to stroll back slowly or rush back to the village. It might be because they had been away for quite a while, and since they were children, they missed home a little, so they had no intention of wandering around and chose to return to the village immediately. Tsukimi smiled, let the others hold her hands tightly, performed the Flying Thunder God technique, and instantly arrived at the Hokage building. Tsunade and Yukino have seen Tobirama use this ninjutsu, but they have never seen it teleport over such a long distance. The chakra consumed by Flying Thunder God is not simply proportional to the distance of teleportation, but as the distance increases, the chakra consumed increases exponentially. It is impossible for Tobirama's chakra to travel directly from the Land of Lightning to Konoha. After returning to Konoha, Tsukimi submitted the mission and received a total of 200,000 ryo, which she gave all to the team members, with each person receiving 50,000 ryo. The team members then treated Tsukimi to a meal, bringing the mission to a successful conclusion. Because it was a B-level mission, Yujian only gave a few people one day off and planned to continue the mission the day after tomorrow. But thinking about the fact that the 2 recent missions had greatly reduced everyone's training time, Yujian decided to give up the idea of a completing the mission and let everyone calm down. It just so happens that there will be a Chunin exam next month, and Yuejian plans to have several people take the Chunin exam. After all, after Yuejian's unremitting training, it should be no problem for several people to pass the Chunin exam. The next morning, Jiraiya ran to the riverside early to practice spiritualism. He wanted to work hard in secret and then surprise everyone. Jiraiya always remembered what Yujian said about stopping at the last step, but he had to remind himself to stop at the last step while performing summoning techniques, so Jiraiya could not concentrate on the previous steps. So Jiraiya thought that he should use it completely once. Anyway, it had never succeeded before, and he couldn't succeed in one try. After all, he was not a genius. Then Jiraiya began to make hand seals, and whispered, Hai Suyu Shenwei, the summoning technique. With a bang, a burst of white mist came out, and Jiraiya actually succeeded in performing the summoning technique. Yumi looked at Jiraiya who had summoned her away and said, the gears of fate have begun to turn. I will go visit Gamamaru in a few days. Now that I am strong, I don't have to worry about anything. Jiraiya was very happy, he ran and jumped and shouted, success. Suddenly he seemed to remember something, looked at the strange environment around him, and the toads running by from time to time, holding his head and said, no, I think I succeeded, what should I do? Where is this place? Soon after, Jiraiya saw a toad confronting a snake. Looking at the snake, he couldn't help but think of Orochimaru. He went over and threw the snake away. The toad was Bunta. Bunta said, it's actually a human child. Jiraiya said, the toad actually spoke. Bunta scolded Jiraiya and said that Jiraiya was very rude. Jiraiya never expected that one day he would be taught etiquette by a toad. Then Bunta took Jiraiya to find Fukasaku. Fukasaku looked at Jiraiya and said, finally you showed up. Jiraiya asked in confusion, it's as if you knew I would show up. The 3 people who gathered at the training ground the next day waited and waited for Jiraiya but he never showed up. Tsunade asked in confusion, where is that idiot Jiraiya? At this time, Yujian came over and said, Jiraiya used the summoning technique to summon himself to a faraway place yesterday. He is very safe for the time being. Let's practice first and don't worry about him. The 3 of them were very shocked. Jiraiya had indeed amazed everyone through his secret efforts. Chapter 45. Tsunade, Yukino, and Orochimaru have all completed their summoning skills, and the only thing left is to find a suitable summoning beast. So Yuejian decided to go to Mount Maya Boku to get the location of Ryokai Cave and Wetbone Forest. After all, the three of them have learned summoning, but it is a bit unreasonable not to have a summoning beast. Thinking of this, Tsukimi had a headache. How to find a suitable summoning beast for Yukino? The four of them were teammates after all. When the four of them fought Hanzo, they were all standing on the heads of giant toads, snakes, and Katsuyu. Did Yukino have to summon a ninja cat to squat on her shoulder? It didn't seem right just thinking about it. In the past, Tsukimi always thought that Hashirama learned sage jutsu in the Wetbone Forest, so the Wetbone Forest might have some relationship with the Senjo clan, so there was no need to worry about Tsunade's summoning beast. But after experiencing it herself, Tsukimi discovered that Hashirama's sage jutsu was actually awakened by himself. Could it be because of Ashura Chakra? So she still has to get the location of the Wetbone Forest by herself. If she waits for Tsunade and Orochimaru to find the Holy Land by chance, she doesn't know how long she will have to wait. Tsunade and the others had already started training on their own, so Tsukimi planned to try Mount Maya Boku. Since she had already made up her mind, there was no need to hesitate. She used Flying Thunder God to teleport to Jiraiya's side. Of course, Mount Maya Boku has barriers, but Tsukimi has also studied sealing techniques for many years. The barriers of Mount Maya Boku are not enough to stop Tsukimi at this time. Moreover, Tsukimi can brute force the barriers of Mount Maya Boku, but this is a bit indecent. At this time, Jiraiya had not yet officially started practicing sage jutsu. Instead, he sat at the dining table, looking at the insect feast in front of him with a bitter look on his face. With a swish, a figure suddenly appeared beside Jiraiya. Fukasaku-sen immediately sensed the sudden appearance of Tsukimi and immediately warned, "Human, who are you and how did you break into our Mount Maya Boku?" Jiraiya looked around belatedly, rubbed his eyes in disbelief, and said, "Teacher, why are you here?" After hearing Jiraiya's words, Fukasaku's vigilance did not decrease at all, and he said coldly, "Human, even if you are Jiraiya's teacher, Mount Maya Boku is not something you can come to whenever you want. Please leave immediately." Fukasaku was very smart. If a stranger had accidentally entered Mount Maya Boku, he would have captured him immediately. However, Tsukimi was obviously an intruder, and he had no idea how Tsukimi suddenly entered Mount Maya Boku, and even came directly in front of him, as if she had appeared out of thin air. So Fukasaku did not take action, he just warned, hoping that Tsukimi would leave. How could Tsukimi be frightened by Fukasaku's words? The purpose of his trip was to Mount Maya Boku. How could he come here without taking anything away? Yujian said, "What if I refuse?" Fukasaku reached out and tore off his cloak, ready to start fighting with Tsukimi. If Tsukimi did not leave Mount Maya Boku at this time, he would take action. Just as Fukasaku began to make hand seals, an old voice was heard. The voice was not loud, but the people present could hear it clearly. They only heard the old voice saying, "Little Fukasaku, bring this stranger to me." Fukasaku looked at Yuejian meaningfully and said stiffly, "Come with me." As soon as he finished speaking, a picture appeared, a skinny green toad was hopping in front, and there was a person following closely behind. It was so funny that it was indescribable. Soon after, Fukasaku brought Uemi to the place where Gamamaru slept all day. Uemi looked at the now old toad and said, "Gamamaru, I haven't seen you for 1,000 years. How come you have aged like this? By the way, you don't know my name yet, I'm Natsume Uemi." Fukasaku was very angry when he heard what Tsukimi said, thinking that Tsukimi was so disrespectful to the Great Toad Sage, and was about to speak. As a result, the Great Toad Sage spoke first, as expected, "You are not from this era. I cannot see your origin, future, or even everything about you. All I can see is the trace of time stagnating on you." Gamamaru continued, "Even if it's Aoi Satsuki Hago Romo or even Aoi Satsuki Kagaya, I can see a glimpse of their future, so who are you?" Yujian said, "It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I am here now and I have something to ask of you." Gamamaru pondered for a long time and said, "Okay, but I have only one condition, that is, you cannot interfere with the development of the ninja world." Yujian shook her head and said, "That may not be possible. What I can do is that I will not interfere with the ninja world myself, but I cannot control what my apprentices or students do to the ninja world." Toad Pill said, "That's enough." From Tsukimi's words, Gamamaru could tell that Tsukimi had no ill will towards the ninja world, so he agreed to Tsukimi's conditions. At this time, Yujian was a little curious and asked, "Didn't you see me in Jiraiya's future?" Gamamaru said, "No, not at all. Since Hashirama and Madara were about 12 years old, I rarely dream about the long-term future. But occasionally I get revelations in my dreams, telling me what choices to make in the present. It has always been like this." Tsukimi nodded and said, "Really? By the way, Jiraiya, you can teach him sage jutsu, you can improve your relationship with him, and you can also ask him to find the child of destiny. But I have only one thing to say, you must not brainwash him, otherwise I will have to come to Mount Maya Boku again." Gamamara's squinting eyes suddenly opened. It was a revelation he had just received not long ago that he wanted Jiraiya to find the child of destiny. He had never told any toad about this, so how did Yuejian know about it? Gamamaru said, "Okay, I get it. It seems that you are really not simple, Natsume Yuejian." Yujian smiled and said, "Okay, Gamamaru, it seems that it is easier to talk to smart people." At this time, Tsukimi began to ask Gamamaru about other things. When he heard that Tsukimi wanted the locations of the other 2 holy places, Gamamaru told Tsukimi without any hesitation. He was even afraid that Tsukimi might not understand it clearly, so he explained it in great detail, and asked Fukasaku to find a map and mark them on the map. Why? The answer is that Gamamaru wants Yuejian to get out of here as soon as possible and go to discuss the other 2 holy places. Since he has been caught in the rain, he might as well tear up other people's umbrellas. Katsuyu's temper is pretty good, and he might not conflict with Tsukimi, but the snakes in Ryokai Cave have really bad tempers. Sending a tough general like Tsukimi to their natural enemies can bring some disturbances to their peaceful days. Thinking of this, Toad Pill even wanted to laugh. At this time, Yujian said, Gameru, do you have any tokens from the 3 holy places? When we go to visit them, it would not be polite to break through the barriers directly. Gamamaru has experienced thousands of years of wind and rain, and his mood has never fluctuated. Even when Hago Romo and Hamura sealed his mother, he remained extremely calm. After all, he had seen it in his dreams, and although he could not see it completely, he roughly knew what was going on, so nothing could break Gamamaru's mood. But Tsukimi is different. This is the first time I've seen such a jerk like Gamamaru. So you had no problem breaking into our Mount Maya Boku barriers, but you start to behave yourself when you are at other people's places? The more he thought about it, the more upset he became. Gamamaru simply took off one of the beads from his neck and gave it to Yuejian, hoping that he would leave quickly. One last question. Are there any other holy places besides the 3 holy places? Toad Pill was silent for a long time, then slowly said, there was indeed one in the distant past. In the past, it would have been more appropriate to call it the 4 holy lands. Chapter 46. There was indeed one in the distant past. In the past, it would have been more appropriate to call it one of the 4 holy lands. Yujian became interested and asked, can you tell me more about it? Of course, the story begins 600 years ago, when there were 4 sacred places on this land, Mount Maya Boku, Ryokai Cave, Wet Bone Forest, and the lost sacred place, Wrongway Valley. Wrongway Valley, then what race lived in this holy land, and how did they disappear? Yuejian said with a little curiosity. The cats lived in Wrongway Valley. As for how they disappeared. At this time, Great Toad Sage paused. Yuejian thought that this guy was going to fall asleep again. When she looked carefully, she found that Gamamaru's face was a little redder than his skin color, as if he was about to say something difficult to say. Seeing Yujian's puzzled look, Gamamaru had to speak up. You also know that the immortals in our holy land all have some hobbies. I am sleepy. The one in Longdi Cave has a weird personality and likes to torture humans. The one in Shijulin loves peace and hopes that everyone will be healthy and free from disasters. But the one in Wrongway Valley, Mao Tang, is different. When the Holy Land was first created, it seemed to have no desires or requests. But everything changed 600 years ago. At that time, your human world seemed to have developed something called business. It just so happened that Mao Tang was obsessed with business. One time when he was out, he accidentally came into contact with business. It seemed that he forgot everything and went to do business on his own. He never returned to the Holy Land again. Yumi was also shocked by Gamamaru's words at this time. No wonder Gamamaru found it difficult to speak. After all, Wrongway Valley was considered a holy place. It was really embarrassing that the immortal from Wrongway Valley, which was also a holy place, ran away like this. Yujian said, didn't the other cats in the Velvet Tail Valley go looking for cat soup? Toad Pill said, we have looked for it, but every time we go out, we lose one. It seems that the cats in the Velvet Tail Valley are born to like doing business. Every cat goes out to do business and completely forgets that they went out to find their own immortal. Then can't they elect another immortal? Toad Pill said, well, when Mao Tang left, he didn't pass down the sage jutsu. After all, he didn't go far away and came back soon. Who knew that he would never come back? Yujian patted his forehead and said, how bizarre. What happened to Wrongway Valley in the end? Toad Pill sorted out his thoughts. After all, he had forgotten a little after such a long time. His brain cells had begun to degenerate and he could not remember much. He said, finally, the Velvet Tail Valley found that if a cat left, a cat would be lost. The remaining cats gradually discovered the business, so they moved their entire tribe to human society, established a family and started doing business. At this time, Gamamaru seemed to have thought of something and said slowly, oh, it seems that the ninja cat family that cooperated with the Uchiha clan was the last cat family to leave the Wrongway Valley. Yuejian was very surprised that the world actually formed a closed loop here. She didn't expect that the ninja cat clan had such an origin. No wonder Granny Cat liked to do business. It turned out that it was in her bones. Yujian asked again, where is the cat in the cat soup now? Gamamaru said, it should be in the southeast corner of the Land of Fire. There are many rivers there. Although Mao Tang is very powerful, he is not cut out for business. He loses everything every time he does business. Now he just fishes every day to earn some money to satisfy his business addiction. The rosary I gave you will slowly heat up if you get close to it. You'll know when you try it. It should be easy to find. After getting all the information he wanted to know, Tsukimi left Mount Maya Boku. Before leaving, he asked Fukasaku to train Jiraiya well and come back to see him in a month, and then left. Next, Tsukimi plans to take Orochimaru and Tsunade to sign contracts with Ryokai Cave and Wet Bone Forest respectively, and then set off to find the cat soup. Then Tsukimi performed the Flying Thunder God technique and appeared in front of Tsunade and the others in the blink of an eye. She told Tsunade and Orochimaru about her plan. The two were very happy. Orochimaru was also very moved. He and Tsukimi had no relationship but she helped him so much. Orochimaru swore that he would repay Tsukimi in the future, even if it cost him his own life. Yukino was happy for the two of them, but also a little disappointed. Yukino was only 12 years old, and when she heard that her elders had found suitable summoning beasts for her two good friends but had not mentioned her, she couldn't help but feel a little unhappy. Yujian naturally noticed it and comforted Yukino, don't worry, Yukino, I found your summoning beast, but the situation is a bit complicated, so you may have to wait a little longer. When Yukino heard this, a smile immediately appeared on her face. She didn't care about the order, as long as Yuejian didn't forget about her. Then Yuejian asked a few people to continue training, and the next day she formally took Tsunade and Orochimaru to visit the other two holy places. As for Yukino, Tsukimi asked her to go and accompany Madara, who had just beaten up Mizukage, tomorrow, to show some care for the empty nest elderly. The next day, Tsunade brought Orochimaru to gather at the entrance of Konoha nursing home. It was Tsukimi who signaled Tsunade, otherwise Orochimaru would not have been able to get close to Konoha nursing home. Very few people knew about the Konoha nursing home. There was no plaque hanging in Uemi's house before, but when the plaque was hung, barriers were set up a few days later. So it was the first time that Orochimaru knew about the Konoha nursing home. At this time, Orochimaru really thought that Konoha nursing home was some kind of loving organization that cared for the elderly, the weak, and the disabled, but it was not until the future that Orochimaru learned that Konoha nursing home was actually the most powerful and violent institution in Konoha, but that's a story for later. Then Yujian came out and set off with the two of them. As they were in a hurry, they hurried very fast. In order to travel quickly, Yujian asked Tobirama to find a very solid piece of meteorite from outer space. Yujian marked the flying thunder god mark on it and relied on her inhuman physique to throw it violently, and the meteorite quickly flew away. As for why kunao is not used, it is because kunao is not strong and will become unusable after a few uses, so meteorite is more comfortable to use. There will be basically no accidents when using this meteorite iron. After all, the Hokage world is still vast and sparsely populated. Tsukimi has been using it for so long without a single murder. If an accident really happened, Yuejian would simply resurrect the person involved, give him some compensation, and use Genjutsu to erase his memories so that his death would not be in vain. Soon after, Yuejian brought the two of them to Raikai Cave, which took about 15 minutes. When they arrived at the Raikai Cave, Yuejian used Gamamera's rosary to enter the Raikai Cave directly without triggering any barriers. At this time, Yujian thought, would the White Snake Immortal really be so kind as to open a back door for Gamamaru? Could it be that Gamamaru himself cracked the barriers of the Raikai Cave and wrote them on the rosary? It's like a protection program in a USB flash drive with a key, except that the content in this USB flash drive was researched by Tobirama himself. After all, a barrier cannot stop an existence like Tobirama, but it is more than enough to stop some ordinary toads. Soon Yujian and his companions met the three goddesses of Raikai Cave. Seeing Yujian and the others, Ichikashimohime, the little lily among the three goddesses, floated in the air, staring at Yujian intently and said, "Human, you seem delicious." Chapter 47. Natsume played with Ichikashimohime's fangs in her hands and said, "Nice teeth, give them to me to make a pendant." Ichikashimohime covered her mouth and said miserably, "You take it, you take it." Tsukimi put the fangs in her pocket and said to Sanshinheim, "I have a student who wants to sign a contract with Raikaido and wants to try to learn Raikaido's sage jutsu. Do you think it's okay?" Sanshinheim couldn't come up with an idea at this time. The person in front of her was obviously not an ordinary person. If she rashly accepted it, she didn't know what would happen. But if she didn't accept it, she was afraid of being beaten. "Didn't you see that Ichikashimohime is still crying?" At this time, the voice of the White Snake Immortal came, "Okay." Yujian nodded and said to Orochimaru, "Good fortune has been given to you, see if you can grasp it. By the way, if you have the chance, you can cultivate a relationship with a snake named Wanshi, which may be helpful to your future." Originally, Tsukimi was thinking about asking Orochimaru to try to sign a contract with Shinga. The Boruto legend said that even the White Snake Sage couldn't do anything to Shinga, but later Tsukimi gave up. Because the setting of Boruto is even more magical than Kishimoto's setting, the characters in Shippuden were not weakened in Boruto, but their legs were directly chopped off. In addition, sometimes there is no obvious difference in strength among Hokage, but it depends on the restraint relationship. For example, in the later period, Orochimaru has various immune to death, and can forcibly control the first generation, second generation, and third generation to beat up, but a 3 Magadama Sharingan can kill him in seconds. So Uemi thinks that it is better for Orochimaru to sign a contract with Manda. Manda's fighting style is more compatible with Orochimaru. Orochimaru is a master of poison, so there is no need to sign a contract with a lion majesty who can petrify people. Instead, the thick-skinned Manda is more suitable for Orochimaru. As for the question of Orochimaru learning Sage Mode, Kabuto once said that Orochimaru could not learn Sage Mode because his soul was incomplete due to frequent changes of bodies, so we can probably guess that Orochimaru went to the Raikai Cave after developing the reincarnation technique. But he signed a psychic contract with Menshi without ever going to Raikai Cave. Yuejian also said that she was not sure. Many settings in the original work were somewhat contradictory. So Yuejian guessed that Menshi might have run into Orochimaru when he went out one day, and they signed a psychic contract immediately. After thinking about it, Yujian said to Sanshinji, "The three of you don't need to treat this child differently during the trial. If he passes, he passes. If he fails, he fails. If he fails, I hope you can spare his life. Please." After that, Yujian took Tsunade and Flying Thunder God away. The three goddesses were not sure whether Yujian really meant that they should not be treated differently or if it was just a polite remark. When the three snakes were still struggling, the White Snake Immortal sent a message to the three snakes, "Just conduct the trial normally." Then the three goddesses came up with an idea and began to prepare for Orochimaru's trial. Orochimaru was not very afraid of the upcoming trial. Although he looked very calm at this moment, he was looking forward to the trial very much in his heart. He vowed not to let Tsukimi down in her expectations and training of him. Soon, Tsukimi brought Tsunade to the Wetbone Forest again. To be honest, the Wetbone Forest was really quiet. After all, there was only one Katsuyu sage, living slug sage, and the rest of the Katsuyu were its split bodies. When Tsunade and Sakura summoned Katsuyu through summoning, the more chakra they used, the larger the summoned clones would be, and all the clones shared the same consciousness, so Katsuyu could even be used as a telephone. In this way, Tsukimi led Tsunade slowly forward. Katsuyu himself was a peace-loving immortal, so Tsukimi also behaved very politely, and soon the two of them walked in front of the immortal Katsuyu. Looking at the huge Katsuyu in front of him, Yuejian was also a little shocked. Katsuyu said, "You are finally here." Yujian was very curious. He thought Katsuyu also had the ability to predict the future, so he asked, "Excuse me, how did you know we were coming?" Katsuyu said, "The big toad has the ability to predict the future, the white snake can hear all the sounds in the ninja world, and I naturally have my own way." Then Katsuyu continued, "And I already know your purpose. This girl can sign a spiritual contract with me, and can also try to learn the sage jutsu of the Wetbone Forest." Katsuyu is an immortal who keeps his word. Yuejian knew that since he had said it, he would not regret it, so he was very happy. He chatted with Katsuyu about family matters. Unexpectedly, Katsuyu was quite happy to chat. Maybe it was a bit boring because no one was talking for a long time. Yuejian and Katsuyu chatted very harmoniously. Katsuyu also expressed his welcome to Yuejian to visit the Wetbone Forest again. Yuejian promised that next time she came to the Wetbone Forest, she would bring Katsuyu some local specialties from human society and some fresh vegetable leaves, and treat Katsuyu to a good meal. Then Yuejian left Tsunade and went away. After settling the few people, Yuejian felt relieved. The next task was to find the cat. Yuejian was very much looking forward to this trip. He even began to wonder what color the cat soup was. After returning to Konoha, Yuemi went to find Tobirama first. After all, Mao Tang liked doing business, so Yuemi planned to negotiate a big deal for Mao Tang. Since all of Yuejian's expenses were reimbursed by Konoha, she didn't have to worry about savings at all. But this time when discussing business with others, how can the other party believe it if I don't show the principle? Then Yuejian decided to go to Tobirama to say hello, take some cash and go to Mao Tang to discuss business. Soon Tsukimi arrived at the Hokage's office. Looking at the busy Tobirama and Izuna, Tsukimi felt pity for them. The feeling of having endless official duties to deal with every day was really torturous. But once he became Hokage, he had all the power. Didn't you see what Hiruzen and Danzo almost did to Konoha in the later period? The White Fang was forced to death, the Hidden Cloud Village gave people when they wanted them, and sent Hisashi away. When the Uchiha were exterminated, he just stood there and watched without any expression, and even covered up Danzo's evil deeds. However, the biggest problem here is the author himself. Originally, Naruto was set to be the incarnation of the Nine-Tails Demon Fox, and later he became the son of the fourth generation. Maybe the author himself didn't want to make any changes at the later stage, and just let third generation go down the same path. When the four Hokage were resurrected by the impure world reincarnation, the third generation admitted that the condition for attack is extermination of the clan was that the village must protect Sasuke well. It can be seen that the extermination of the Uchiha clan was tacitly approved by the third generation. Moreover, Tobirama advocated monitoring the Uchiha clan at that time, and he was a little worried about all the families, but he was particularly worried about the Uchiha clan. After Hiruzen took office, surveillance turned into exclusion. The original novel said that the Uchiha clan could not stand the high-pressure policy of the Konoha high-level officials and decided to launch a coup. It seems that Madara had a very clear vision when he left. In a Konoha like that, the Uchiha clan had no future at all. Although the biggest problem is the conflict set by the original author, the third generation did indeed do those things in the end, so Tsukimi is not targeting the person but the matter, and has no good feelings towards Hiruzen who did so many shameful things. After sorting out her chaotic thoughts, Yujian asked Tobirama, "Tobirama, are you interested in starting a big business?" Tobirama asked, "Business? What business?" Yujian said calmly, "A business that has the potential to make Konoha a holy place." Chapter 48. Tsukimi told Tobirama and Izuna about her plan to bring Nikoyu back to Konoha. They were both very excited. She also knew something about the three holy places. After the end of the Warring States period, various countries began to conduct detailed explorations of the ninja world. The three holy places were no longer a secret in the eyes of the top leaders. That's why the two were so excited when Yuejian said that it was possible to make Konoha a holy place. Tobirama and Izuna knew the value of the Holy Land. After finding the Holy Land, they would continue to learn Sage Jutsu. After learning Sage Jutsu, their combat power would definitely increase dramatically. You see, after Naruto learned Sage Jutsu, he came back and pressed down on Pain. Although he was beaten to pieces by Pain in the end, and then he relied on Hinata's explosion to kill Tendo in seconds, but at least they still had a good fight. Besides, when fighting Six Paths Obito, only Sage Jutsu can cause damage to Obito, which still shows the value of Sage Jutsu. Then Tobirama said that he would provide whatever money Tsukimi asked for. In order to show his sincerity, Tobirama and Izuna even decided not to go to work today and go with Tsukimi to bring back the cat soup. Then the three of them started a spontaneous trip. Because Izuna did not know the Flying Thunder God technique and Tobirama's Chakra could not satisfy his high-intensity Flying Thunder God technique, Tsukimi took the two of them on the trip. It is said that a few years ago, Tsukimi gave her own cells and Hashirama's cells to Idama for research. After such a long time, I wonder if he has made any progress. Banjian is a research maniac. If you don't look for him, he will never take the initiative to talk to you in his life. He is obsessed with research and cannot extricate himself. If something can be researched, Madara, Tobirama and Izuna can all be strengthened, at least their chakra amount and recovery ability will be increased a lot. In this way, if Kinkaku and Ginkaku launch a coup, Tobirama should not die there. Yujian held the Toad Pills rosary in her palm and kept approaching the position of Mao Tang. The two were also shocked by Yujian's hardcore way of rushing on the road, and secretly praised in their hearts, "Master is worthy of being a master." A town in the southeast corner of the Fire Country. The town is very lively, with all kinds of stalls lined up on both sides of the street. The vendors selling ninja props shouted loudly and displayed the glittering kunao in their hands. There were also shops selling special delicacies, and the aroma filled the air, making everyone salivate. Yujian and his companions entered the town, and as they walked, they asked about the whereabouts of Mao Tang. It seems that Mao Tang is quite famous. Soon, one of the old merchants stroked his beard and said, "Mao Tang? Mao Tang for money? I heard that it went bankrupt not long ago and started the business of catching and selling fish again. Walk along this street and you will see it soon. Our town was able to develop thanks to cat soup. On the one hand, it worked hard to make money and support many people. On the other hand, it was rare for ninja beasts to do business. Many tourists came to visit, which revitalized our local economy." After hearing this, Yuejian thought it was a perfect match. It was really a perfect match. He was indeed the business expert that Gamamaru mentioned. One cat could support an entire town. She is comparable to Tsunade, the big fat sheep. She has no idea how many casinos she supports. Soon after, they found a blue-gray and white domestic cat squatting on the carpet at the corner of the street. Yuejian felt that this cat looked like Tomcat no matter how she looked at it. At this moment, Yujian remembered seeing the Six Paths Tom Mim in her previous life. Could it be possible to reproduce it? There was a pile of fresh fish in front of Mao Tang, and a customer was bargaining with Mao Tang, arguing with him until their face turned red. Your fish doesn't look fresh. I'll consider it if you make it cheaper. The customer muttered. Mao Tang angrily retorted, my fish are all freshly caught, so the price is very fair. Not long after, the customer left with 2 fishes. Mao Tang finally gave him a very low price. He even didn't know what was going on but was tricked into buying one and getting one free. But Mao Tang was not sad. He was happy that he had saved up some startup fund. Yujian saw that the customer had already left, so she walked over and said with a smile, Boss Mao Tang, we want to discuss a big deal with you. Mao Tang looked at them warily, what big business? I'm busy now. Tsukimi winked, and Tobirama took a step forward, took out a bag of gold coins and shook it. Mao Tang's eyes suddenly lit up, and his mood improved as he heard the crisp sounds of the gold coins. However, he was still wary of the few people. After all, he had been cheated by his trading partners many times in his business. Seeing that Mao Tang still didn't want to pay attention to them, Izuna stepped forward, took out a sealed scroll, spread it on the ground, and then Izuna unsealed it, revealing a pile of gold bricks neatly stacked. Mao Tang couldn't take his eyes off it when he saw it. What trading partners? These guys are obviously big bosses. Can they treat trading partners the same way as they treat big bosses? Mao Tang nodded and bowed, what business are you guys here for? Tsukimi was speechless after seeing the changes in the cat soup. Such a cat without bottom line. Tsukimi seemed to have the same memory from someone a long time ago, as if she was Madara who was eager to defeat Hashirama. Mao Tang planned to take a few people to the forest where he often fished, and said, there are too many people here, so it's not a good place to talk business. Gentlemen, please follow me, and we will go to another place to talk business. After arriving at the forest, Yuejian stated her purpose and asked Mao Tang to stay in Konoha Village to teach Sage Jutsu. But who would have thought that after listening to what a few people said, Mao Tang's attitude changed significantly. Mao Tang returned to his normal body shape, and mist with light spots continued to emerge from between his blue and white fur, which was magnificent. Mao Tang said, you guys actually tried to get your hands on Sage Jutsu, do you have the capital to do so? For so many years, Mao Tang had never thought of selling Sage Jutsu for profit, even if he starved to death, died outside, or jumped into the river. Although Mao Tang is an extremely unreliable immortal, he is still responsible for taking care of Sage Jutsu. Well, even though the cat soup was unreliable, the cats in Rongwei Valley didn't blame it. After all, everyone was busy doing business. Although the cats in Rongwei Valley missed the life in the Holy Land, they preferred the days when they could do business now. The cats involved didn't say anything, so how could others blame them? Seeing Mao Tang saying this, Yujian had no choice but to offer Gamamera's rosary. Mao Tang was surprised to see the rosary and said, you actually have Gamamera's rosary. It seems that you are not simple. It is really not easy to let Gamamaru, that stingy toad, give you the rosary. Shiesu. Yes, isn't that toad stingy? I just borrowed money from him a few times, it's not like he won't pay it back, but he refused to give me money after borrowing from him a few times, not even 100 taels. Then I heard that the toad oil from Mount Maya Boku seemed to be very powerful, so I secretly packed some. But they told me to get out, and they didn't sell the toad oil for a high price. No one wanted it even if I gave it away for free. Yujian's face darkened when she heard this. It's not that you won't pay it back, but that you simply can't pay it back. Also, how could you possibly sell the toad oil in a town populated by ordinary people? Most ninjas probably didn't even know what toad oil was used for. If you don't practice Sage Jutsu, there is no use having toad oil. No wonder Mao Tang keeps going bankrupt, his business acumen is incredible. However, Yuejian was also a little curious. As a sage, Mao Tang should have the ability to know the news of the ninja world, so how come he didn't know anything about the coming of these 3 people? Yuejian asked Mao Tang, and Mao Tang answered like this. Who would do such a boring thing as monitoring the ninja world? I'm busy with business, so I don't have time to monitor the ninja world. However, with Gamamera's rosary, this matter is easier to accomplish. Mao Tang and Gamamaru have a good relationship, otherwise he would not have to borrow money from Gamamaru or go to Mount Maya Boku to beg for money. Tsukimi is not good at negotiation, so she lets Tobirama handle it. After all, Tsukimi is very convinced of Tobirama's political acumen. Soon, Tobirama and Nikoyu agreed on the terms, and the group prepared to return to Konoha to finalize the details of this big deal. Chapter 49. Mao Tang arrived at Konoha Village and looked at the environment of Konoha and said, is this the Konoha Village you mentioned? It feels pretty good. After saying that, Mao Tang was stunned for a moment and continued, strange, I just opened my perception and I found the breath of the tribe members. Could it be that a group of cats from the Velvet Tail Valley came to your Konoha? Originally, the Ninja Cat clan lived in the empty zone. Since the cat soup was going to be left in Konoha, Tobirama asked Madara and Hashirama if they could invite the Ninja Cat clan to Konoha before he set out to look for the cat soup. The 2 of them lived up to everyone's expectations and invited the Ninja Cat clan back to Konoha Village before Yuejian and others found the cat soup. Konoha was willing to directly plan out a commercial street to accommodate the Ninja Cat clan. In addition, after hearing that the sage was going to settle in Konoha and that Madara was ready to make a move, the Ninja Cat clan accepted Madara's proposal. So Yuejian told Mao Tang about the origin of the Ninja Cat clan, and Mao Tang planned to visit the clan members after discussing business. Long time no see. I guess all the cats that followed me have passed away. A few people brought cat soup from the Konoha gate along the main road towards the Hokage building. Along the way, everyone who met Tobirama and Izuna would stop what they were doing and greet the 2 of them from the bottom of their hearts. At the same time, they were also curious about who the man and the cat following the Hokage were. Mao Tang looked at the people coming and going and said, that's good. The guys named Tobirama and Izuna, these people really agree with you too from the bottom of their hearts. It seems that you are doing a good job as a leader. Tobirama and Izuna couldn't help but put smiles on their faces after hearing this. Mao Tang's words really touched their hearts. Aren't Tobirama and Izuna working in the Hokage building from dawn to dusk every day just for the villagers? Nothing could make them happier than the recognition of the villagers. Tobirama said happily, thank you for the compliment, Senior Mao Tang. It's too much. Mao Tang shook his head and said, boy, I don't need to compliment you. I am telling the truth. You are really a good boy. Just bear with it. But boy, did you come to me so that your Konoha village could learn Sage Jutsu? That's right. The learning cycle of Sage Jutsu is very long. It is possible that there will be no results in 10 or 20 years. Only by learning it can you form effective combat power. If other countries find out that your Konoha village has a systematic channel to learn Sage Jutsu, I believe other countries will not be able to sit still. Mao Tang continued, on the way to Konoha, I observed a genin world. With all due respect, if the other 4 nations join forces, you and Izuna alone will not be able to compete. You may survive, but Konoha will definitely be destroyed. After all, you are the head of a village, and you can't rely on your master to protect the village. If you can't prove that Konoha can protect Sage Jutsu, I will definitely not let the Sage Jutsu of Rongwei Valley spread in Konoha. Mao Tang already knew that Natsume Tsukimi was the master of Senjo Tobirama and Uchiha Izuna. Mao Tang was still very curious about Tsukimi, who not only taught strong men like Tobirama and Izuna, but also got Gamamera's rosary from Mount Maya. Boku. The most important thing is that it can sense that the Izuna next to Tobirama is not a person who should exist in the world. This is why Mao Tang followed a few people to Konoha village. Cats are very curious, and Mao Tang is the same. It really wants to find out what is going on. But their relationship is not that close now, and Mao Tang is embarrassed to ask about Yumi's privacy. He is 100% sure that the abnormality in Izuna is related to Yumi. At this time, the few people did not enter the Hokage building, but instead walked around the building and entered a strange barrier. Mao Tang was also very curious about this barrier, as it had not sensed this barrier just now. Tobirama said at this time, Senior, please follow me. After entering barriers, Mao Tang discovered that his perception was blocked. Of course, this was related to the fact that Mao Tang did not use his perception to its full potential. So Mao Tang simply turned off his perception and tried again to experience the pleasure of facing the unknown. When he arrived at the door, Mao Tang saw a strange plaque with Konoha Nursing Home written on it. The door of the nursing home was already open, and it was pitch black inside, like a huge abyss waiting for Mao Tang to enter. Mao Tang took a look and said, interesting. He walked in, and the other 3 followed him into the gate of the nursing home. As soon as a few people entered, the door suddenly closed. Mao Tang looked back and found 2 strange men standing at the gate with their arms folded, one on the left and one on the right, like 2 door gods. Chakra was emanating from their bodies from time to time, and one could guess how terrifying the 2 men were from the emanating chakra. Of course, this horror was for Tobirama and Izuna. When Nico Tang saw their strength, his eyes lit up and he said, that's great. I didn't expect that you Konoha still have such strong people. It seems that you have the strength to protect the Sage Jutsu. Then the next question is how much money it will cost. Then, Tobirama offered an extremely high price to Nico Yuki on behalf of Konoha. This price was enough for Nico Yuki to support the Nico Ninja clan, and it was even more than enough. Nico Yuki's task was only to teach Sage Jutsu, and the money would be paid every year. As he said this, Tobirama gave this year's money to Mao Tang. Mao Tang looked at the small golden mountain in front of him, climbed up and smelled it, and couldn't help but say, ah. It smells so good. As for whether Tobirama felt any pain for giving so much gold, Tobirama thought about it and felt that it was completely acceptable. The spy sent a message saying that the bodyguard of 2nd generation Kazekage shaman, Sarashiro recently accepted a disciple named Raza. Shaman is training Sarashige as his successor, and Tobirama guesses that Sarashige is likely to be the future 3rd generation Kazekage. Luo Shat is not an ordinary child. He is only 6 years old but he can vaguely move the gold in the sand through chakra. If I practice systematically in the future, I might be able to develop ninjutsu related to Jinsha. So now the Konoha village will start practicing Sage Jutsu, and when Sage Jutsu is popularized and effective in 20 years, they will conquer the sand village. By then, Raza will have grown up, and they can send him to the desert to pan for gold. This way, not only can Luosha use the gold he mined to pay back the money for the cat soup, but he may even have some surplus. What did Konoha pay after so long? Konoha didn't pay anything. Not only did it get Sage Jutsu for free, it even had extra gold income. The only one who might have suffered a little was Raza. But by then, Luosha will only be 26 years old, which is the prime of his life. When Luosha reaches 60 years old, he will be arranged to retire. At that time, Konoha is willing to cover all his future expenses. The more Tobirama thought about it, the happier he became, and before he knew it, a smile had crept up to the corners of Tobirama's mouth. Tobirama wiped the saliva that was about to flow out, and thought that those who were not my villagers must have different hearts, so he made arrangements for Luo Sha without any guilt. After completing the transaction with Mao Tang began to stare at Hashirama. He found that Hashirama was not a person who should exist in the world, and his curiosity arose again. As the saying goes, curiosity kills the cat, which shows how strong the cat's desire for knowledge is. They are already partners and their relationship is much closer. So Mao Tang, who couldn't hold it in any longer, asked, Tsukimi, what's going on with Izuna and the guy grinning at the gate? Why do I feel like they shouldn't exist in this world right now? Chapter 50. Hashirama was stunned for a moment, then pointed at himself with his right index finger, meaning are you talking about me? Madara turned back and held her face with both hands, with her head against the wooden door. Madara couldn't understand why this guy Hasalamama had been fighting with him for so long, and it was really embarrassing to be called the 2 heroes of the ninja world together with him. Madara now had a strong suspicion of this world. At this time, Hashirama introduced himself cheerfully. Mao Tang really liked this kind of person who was very outgoing and friendly. Such people were either extremely shrewd in doing business, or they were big fools. They were one of the few opportunities for Mao Tang to make money. Of course, most of the people Mao Tang met were the former, but Mao Tang, who had seen countless people, could be sure that Hashirama was definitely the latter. Even Mao Tang had never seen such an aura of wisdom. Seeing that Hashirama was so familiar with him, Mao Tang had no scruples and walked over to circle around Hashirama, sniffing something in the air as he circled. However, Hashirama's performance was magical. He had bright eyes and looked at Mao Tang curiously as he circled around him. His mouth was slightly open, revealing 8 big white fangs. He looked honest and simple. Tsukimi couldn't help but think that it was this Hashirama who actually thought of using the wood-style clone to trick Madara and then stabbed Madara in the back. Of course this was just a joke, Hashirama just didn't want to care too much. In fact, Hashirama knew exactly what was going on. But it is indeed true that Hashirama is simple and honest. He can be said to be wise in a foolish way. While sniffing, Mao Tang let out Aha and actually ran to Madara and started sniffing. Mao Tang's steps became faster and faster, and he kept saying weird, weird. In the end, the cat soup returned to its normal size. Fortunately, the nursing home was large, otherwise it would not have been able to hold all of it. It was now using all its strength to observe Hashirama and Madara at the gate. The vertical pupils in its eyes disappeared and turned into a group of lines like a child's doodle. Being stared at like that, Madara and Hashirama couldn't help but feel a little nervous. In addition, Mao Tang's strength was definitely stronger than theirs, so after so many years, Madara and Hashirama actually showed rare nervousness. I see, Tsukimi, if I'm not mistaken, according to the predetermined fate, Hashirama and Izuna are already dead. It is your influence that allows them to still stand here now. And the fate of the kid next to Hashirama also fluctuates greatly, but this fluctuation is still not as big as the difference between life and death. If I hadn't heard it carefully just now, I would have overlooked it. And Tobirama's fate has fluctuated very little, so I didn't notice any problems with him along the way. Now it seems that Tobirama's fate has also changed a little. So, you are the one who brought about these changes, Yearn. I observed your fate and found it was nothing. This has never happened to me before. No wonder the big toad is willing to give you the rosary. It turns out you are not simple. When the few people found Mao Tang's recovery of his original size was a deterrent. At that time, no one paid attention to their situation. Now, after Mao Tang's full observation, he found that Yearn was indeed unusual. At this moment Mao Tang felt that coming to Konoha might be the most successful business he had ever done in his life, and it was not even impossible for him to make a breakthrough to a higher level in strength. Yearn nodded and admitted that all the changes were caused by herself. Madara and the others were a little shocked at this time, as Yearn had never told them such a thing. With their current strength, the 4 of them all knew what predetermined fate meant. That is to say, if Tsukimi had not interfered, Hashirama and Izuna would definitely be buried in the ground now. If this is the case, then under normal circumstances, the 4 people would definitely not meet Tsukimi, so where did the turn of events take place? If you ask a few people whether they would be averse to Yearn interfering in their destiny, many of them would answer with certainty that they would not. Everyone knew how good Yearn was to them. Besides, without Tsukimi, Madara herself would definitely be like a lonely soul, living alone in the world. Tobirama also didn't have his elder brother, and Hashirama and Izuna simply passed away. Therefore, all the changes were for the better, and it was impossible for them to say that they were rejecting it. Mao Tang observed Yearn for a while with its eyes that looked like messy lines, and then it immediately turned into a mini version of Mao Tang. Although it could not see Yearn's fate, it could see that if Yearn wanted to attack itself, it would die in less than half a day. This result was enough to scare Mao Tang. You know, the strength of Great Toad Sage is comparable to Sage of 6 Paths. Even if it is weaker, it is not much weaker. The strength of the immortals from the 4 holy places is almost the same. Since Bantian Yearn can beat him to death, it means Yearn also has the strength to kill the Sage of 6 Paths. What does this mean? How terrifying is Yearn's strength? Mao Tang has no idea of a euro it, just like 3-dimensional creatures can't imagine what life is like for 4-dimensional creatures. The same is true for Mao Tang at this time. Mao Tang had never seen a combat force beyond the 6 Paths level, so naturally he couldn't imagine what the strength beyond the 6 Paths was like. However, this did not prevent Mao Tang from listing Yearn as a human who must not be provoked. Yearn did not explain her situation to the others. After all, some things would only become more troublesome the more she talked about them, so it was better to just leave them there and not touch them. Seeing that things were almost over, Mao Tang left with his little mountain of gold. The moment he walked out of the door, Mao Tang became extremely happy again. After all, he was considered a wealthy cat, and it was more reassuring to have money in his pocket. Then Mao Tang walked to the Ninja Cat commercial street. At this time, the cats of the Ninja Cat clan were tidying up their shops. At the end of the Ninja Cat commercial street was a huge house where all the cats lived. At this time, Granny Cat was smoking a pipe in the house. Suddenly, she found a blue and white cat coming in. Granny Cat couldn't help but pick it up and said, "Oh, such a cute little cat, are you lost?" Mao Tang knew that Granny Cat had been taking care of the Ninja Cat clan, otherwise the Ninja Cat clan's business acumen would have been gone long ago. It could be said that after Mao Tang was gone, Granny Cat took over the role of taking care of the cats, so Mao Tang still had a good impression of the human in front of him. Grandma Cat's real name is Kui. At this time, Grandma Cat is about 30 years old. Rather than calling her Grandma Cat, it would be more appropriate to call her Aunt Cat. Mao Tang said, "Human, let me go, you are being a little rude." When Kui heard this, she was stunned at first, then she laughed and let go of the hand that was holding Mao Tang. In her opinion, the immortal is also a cat, and is still very cute. After she let go, Mao Tang jumped onto the table beside him and shook his body. It turns out to be Master Mao Tang. "I'm sorry for offending you just now. Please forgive me," Kui said respectfully. Mao Tang wagged his tail and said, "I came here to see the kittens in the tribe and to thank you." Kui tilted her head in confusion. "Thank me? Why? I have seen how you have taken care of the Ninja Cat clan over the years. If it weren't for you, they wouldn't be able to live such a stable and prosperous life." Mao Tang said seriously. Kui smiled slightly, "It's nothing, I like these little guys too. But I will remember this kindness. If you need anything in the future, feel free to come to me. As long as it is within my ability, I will not refuse. Mao Tang solemnly promised. Kui's eyes were full of surprise. Thank you, Master Cat Soup. Just then, an old and frail ninja cat ran in with a few little ninja cats, and the kittens meowed happily around the cat soup. The old ninja cat said, "Wrong way to Niko Kawa, I greet Lord Niko Tang." If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.